Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very scary pyramid scheme edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party!
Monster
Hey, let's get to this. I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm SHAWN Sheridan.
I'm Larry STROTHE.
And I'm James GONIS.
And for this episode, this is an episode that we have been threatening to do. Threatening each other, I think, for the most part.
It's been brought up a lot.
Yeah, it's been brought up, and there's been various levels of excitement about it. But what the hell? We're going to do it.
Because I'm excited about this.
You too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I am more excited now than I was when we initially came up with the idea. But after doing some research, I think this could be fun.
And
so let me tell you.
cobwebs.
Yeah, let me tell you what this topic is. The topic is mummies.
Mummies.
Mummies. We've never
Mummies.
done an episode just about mummies.
Exclusively on mummies.
Exclusively mummy. It's a mummies only club.
Mummies
right.
are us.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so when I think of mummies, I go into the database in my head of friends and entertainers, comedic geniuses, and I come up with one name.
Only one person.
One guest who could do this topic justice. And that is a very good friend of mine, a talented comedian, actor, writer, director, producer. This guy has done everything. You might know him from the HIGGINS Boys and GRUBER, and MALCOM in the Middle, American Horror Story. Let's welcome back Dave Higgins.
Dave Higgins!
Welcome.
Everybody.
Hey, Dave.
Hey,
Thanks for
Dave.
coming back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to be
Let's
back.
give you a big, warm mummy welcome.
And so, Dave, we gave you a number of topics to choose from. We gave you a nice little list, and you picked this one out. And I'm just curious, what about mummies
That
brought you
intrigued
to the table?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably the weakest of all the monsters. Although, if
I
you look
disagree, but okay.
All right,
Yeah.
no, keep going.
at the films of Brandon Fraser and Tom Cruise, the
Well, yeah,
mummy-
if you're talking about those, yeah.
Well, yeah.
but I kind of think of those as an aberration of the whole.
Yeah.
An
I agree.
Think
aberration?
about hypnosis,
Mm-hmm.
Reincarnation.
Reincarnation, yes.
Reincarnation, yep, and
They're kind of
Curses.
zombies.
they are
Yeah.
zombies. The first zombies, although not really, because they had zombies.
The lore was before that, but the idea of a zombie coming back to life, a dead body coming back to life, aside from Frankenstein,
Mm-hmm.
now I got
it would be a mummy as a zombie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a question about that because it is kind of a thing where Dracula was hugely successful for Universal.
Right.
Frankenstein, hugely successful.
Yes.
And then the Mummy's right in there.
It did really well.
1932.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tried to research in trying to find any Mummy film before 32.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
that-
that
yeah.
was the first example of
In
a
that
mummy.
classical sense of like an Egyptian mummy returning to life that's bandaged,
Yeah,
that,
there-
as
there
far
were-
as I know, was that from that Karloff film.
Yeah, there were films like the Mummy Curse kind of thing, more of a pyramid curse. Like they had I know they had some silence of like Carter going into because that was big in the 20s.
Well, yeah, Howard Carter,
Carter,
in the
the-
20s. Howard Carter, who discovered King Tut's tomb.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That was in 1922. That was
Yeah.
in 1922.
So-
and
And there were films of him opening it, and then people
Right.
being
It was a
cursed
huge
by opening
media
up
sensation.
But the idea of a mummy as the horror figure, I mean, they saw them as fascinating and horrifying, but no films made it a monster until 32 with Karloff.
And Karloff's interpretation, there was more a romantic kind of almost Dracula style of a character, though, because
Yeah.
the classic bandaged mummy that you see him in, you only see him for a
Comes
few
later.
minutes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Where he's
he
in the whole
becomes-
film.
Right, because later he becomes Ardith Bey. You know, he's kind of disguised, or you don't realize that he was that bandaged mummy. It's a different thing. It wasn't until the sequels in the 40s that took on the more faster paced, efficient B movie programmers,
Right.
where
But
it's your
also you
classic
look
mummy
at-
and bandages.
You look at all films of that era that, like, if you watching Dracula now, the original Dracula, the Lugosi Dracula, the pacing is so slow.
Sure.
It's almost
Yeah.
like a stage play, which it was.
Yeah,
It
and so was the mummy.
right, and it was. But the idea of the mummy, and I think it was all the sequels that made it more of the creature to be feared.
Right.
Although there is a
Yes.
scene in the 32 one of the mummy coming and moving towards, and
Right.
but they were slow moving. They're a slow moving monster, and and you could kind of break them apart in
Right.
even
Well, if
though
you get a
Or
chance.
unravel them, right? I mean,
with Lon Chaney Jr., those films, I think they shoot guns through the mummy
yes.
and
But
nothing
wait,
happens.
let's not jump ahead too much ahead of the 1932 Carl Freund film, because that is still my favorite mummy film. I love that movie, and I would say even with even though it's a film of its time, it's a little stagey.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still feel like it moves along, and
Also,
that's because of Karloff, because Karloff is just so
drawn.
mesmerizing as that character.
like he was in Frankenstein, his
Yeah.
drawn face.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a more moody, poetic kind of film.
Yeah, and he looks desiccated. He looks like there's no moisture in him, that he is a mummy.
Yeah.
And I find him really frightening. I think he's very scary because, you get, your classic mummy when he comes to life in the beginning of the film, but then later you see him and now he's sans bandages and he's just this scary, terrible zombie man.
Now, I think that's the only time he was the mummy. Every sequel,
it was somebody else.
there was another
But
actor.
One of the great things about that film was Jack Pierce's makeup that he did on Karloff, both as the mummy with the bandages in the face, which is so creepy.
Yeah.
But then also the look that Karloff has, when he's out of that dry skin, that was created by Jack Pierce.
Right.
And it's an interesting thing because that look isn't really replicated in anything else.
No, and I think that effect was done with something almost, I'm not sure about this, but it's almost like with Elmer's glue type of thing, where they put glue on his face and it brought those wrinkles in and they pushed it.
It's surprisingly subtle for a film that was coming after Frankenstein.
Right.
But still, what's so cool is you have these moments in the film after he has been brought back to life, and he's reciting his like the to wake up the dead or for eternal life, and there are these shots of his face with the lighting, looking deep into his eyes, and the makeup. He just has such an amazing look that just hasn't been replicated. And the other thing too about that particular mummy, that's the one mummy where the mummy talks. Where he's like the central character and he actually has dialogue with people. Whereas, later on,
he became just a lumbering boogeyman. Yeah.
He became Lon Chaney.
Yeah, it's true. but they're just different
Junior,
films.
yes.
Yes. But the first Mummy is a romantic kind of love story that involves reincarnation and involves.
It's a chick flick, yes.
But it's really
and
well
you gotta
done.
remember at that period of time, showing Egypt and how exotic and everything.
Yes.
So that was also another thing that film did for you in the 30s. The average American never went more than 15 miles from their home.
Movies were like a travel log, and that's why they had travel logs.
And I think a lot of those films, besides setting, like if you look at there's more of a gothic influence of Frankenstein and Dracula.
Yes.
And The Mummy is a film of its time. It is 32. You don't feel like with Dracula, there's a feeling that you're really in Victorian England.
Yes.
Even though I believe the film is supposed to be modern era. The original play was in 1870 something.
Right.
I think the movie itself is supposed to be in modern time, but there's still this feeling, and again with Frankenstein, that it's from another time. It's not now.
Right.
And that's why when you go in those movies where you originally find Dr. Frankenstein working on his creature or Dracula in his castle, there are always these remote locations. So you can do that easier.
Yeah.
You can mix the,
light.
modern and old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the dramatic lighting and everything. And I just think, I mean, first of all, it is a great performance out of Karloff. And
So
especially compared to Frankenstein's an amazing performance in doing nothing in terms of really, he has no lines. It's just the whole idea of this guy, he's finally allowed to have dialogue.
Yes, yeah, he gets to he
And-
gets to be the proper leading man.
Yes, yes. It's funny because, not to keep going back to Frankenstein, but, he was originally credited as the monster.
That's right.
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 And he wasn't used in any of the posters or anything until re-release of the film. So if you ever see it saying Boris Karloff on it, you've got a reproduction or a later release of the Frankenstein poster. Don't buy it. But the Mummy, that is the best of the mummies, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah.
Even though it was made in 32, and as Dave said, it's like a product of the times. I was doing this thing with my daughter a number of years ago when I was showing her all the classics. And I brought this up on another show where a mistake I made was I'd seen the Mummy, I had it on for her, and I said, honey, I'm just going to go and I'm going to make a sandwich or something. And when I went in there, it happened to go through the sequence when Karloff's Mummy says to, I guess it's Zita,
Zita Johann.
Yeah. And he says, you'll not remember what I'll show you now. I'll tell you the story of pain and sorrow. And it tells the story of how he fell in love.
Yeah.
And the thing that he did that caused the wrath of the Pharaoh.
It's like a movie within a movie. It's
and there's
great.
a sequence when they start wrapping him alive.
Scary.
And my daughter flipped out.
Yeah.
Apparently she stood on the couch. And then they wrap him up and they bury him. And then the next sequence, they said they killed the slaves. And it shows the soldiers throwing the spears. The next shot is all the slaves have spears going through them going, ah! And what movie had that?
Yeah.
And my daughter came running into the kitchen at that point. Says, Daddy, I can't watch this movie.
Yeah. Well, in terms of older films, in terms of that, it's like not He Who Laughs, but the Conrad Veidt, where he's
The Man Who Laughs.
The Man Who Laughs. He's got that crazy smile.
Yeah.
That's like a similar storyline in terms of that, where the real horror is not the person. He's actually in it. Like, everybody's frightened of him, but it's because he had laughed at the king, and then they cut the smile into him. It's really the horror of him having to go through that and live the rest of his life with this jester's face,
Well, what I like too in the 32 Mummy is that they have an element of the story where he's not just this villain, that there is some sympathy there because he does this for love.
Right.
And even though by this point, I think he's pretty much gone insane, but
have that as well, though. I think all the great monster films have that.
Yeah.
They're not this one-dimensional, Frankenstein, he didn't ask to be brought back, you know what I mean? There's an empathy, like when he's trying to be with the little girl and the flowers.
Yeah. That was just a mistake. Happens.
Yeah.
How many times has this happened to you?
Exactly. But a lot of the characters are like, they either have a curse or, great monster films. There's something more to it. How they were created. That's what I think throws people off about true life monsters is, of course, there's tragedy in a serial killer. Like they didn't just become that, but they seem so normal. And our classic horror films, it's all about what they look like, the vision of being,
And one of James's favorite novels, American Psycho.
Yeah.
This yuppie type who, has all the things that everybody we're told in our country we're supposed to want. And this is who he really is. And it's, it's allegorical, of course, but just the idea that someone this straight-laced and successful and attractive is a monster. And then who isn't a monster then?
Right.
Right. Well, and we all were, we're all these chickens are coming to roost.
Right.
The 80s B generation created terrible monsters. But the idea of I just watched last night, my wife put it on and then fell asleep, was Silence of the Lambs is on Netflix right now. So, and that wasn't viewable for a long time because of there was a lawsuit about that film. Like the company that made it disappeared. And
Is
so,
that right? Really?
yeah, for a long time you couldn't get it. Like I remember when it came out finally on DVD. There was a big deal with it. Can't remember what the company was that made it, but they either disappeared, but they were like no one had the rights to it. So
I didn't know this. Wow.
Well,
anyway, now it's all over the place because they figured it out. But he is the most fascinating character in that film. And it's like that always kind of bothered me that the serial killer is the most fascinating, most interesting character in the whole film. Like Starling is Starling and she saves the day, but who do we root for? We want Hannibal Lecter to get away with it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like
I'm assuming Larry doesn't agree.
Well, it's not really my favorite mummy movie, but
All right. Okay. Hey, so
I apologize. You're right. I've gone off.
we've digressed a little bit, but Sean has numerous times told us how much he enjoys the latter.
Well, I do.
the
I mean,
Mummy
I like
films.
to say, like, I'm surprised you guys don't like them because the thing is,
I
though,
don't hate them.
but
I don't think they're great.
I watched them. That's but
by the time the 40s hit, Universal was doing really well with all their monster characters and as well as their sequels. And it was
Right.
time, they felt, 1940, to bring the Mummy back. But when they did it in a very different way because they did not bring back the Karloff mummy. It's a completely different mummy character.
Right.
So they created a whole backstory for this new mummy character called Kharis.
Right.
And Kharis was a mummy who had this forbidden love to Princess Ananka. And he returns from the dead as this new mummy for a new film and a whole new kind of set of films. But like I was saying before, yeah, the original Mummy is fantastic. It's a beautiful, classic Universal 30s film. But at this point in Universal's regime, they were making these faster-paced programmers and, cheaper, more action-oriented, but they were still...
Hipper, newer, not your
mostly-
father's mummy.
Yeah.
Something about I read something a long time ago, and it was an essay on the idea that the movie monsters were so popular in the 40s because the real world was, you wanted to escape from real.
Sure, and that's what these were. They were, to me, they're quintessential Universal 40s horror. And
yes,
a lot of the same stock character players from the films. And yes, Lon Chaney is in the sequels, but not in the first one, because the first sequel, The Mummy's Hand, had a Western star, Tom Tyler, playing the mummy, and he's quite good, and he's quite a scary mummy.
Yeah.
And this is a mummy that shambles around and kills people. And the thing is, you're talking about zombies. To me, what's great about the mummy is he's like the ultimate zombie, but he's extra menacing because it's a zombie that has his wherewithal. He's going after you, and he's not going to stop. Nothing's going to distract him or kill him. And
he's extra strong too.
Yes, and it also brings in the whole idea of it still has a little bit of the forbidden love aspect because it's like Princess Ananka, and it also brings in a great gimmick that became a mainstay in these films, and that was the idea of the TANNA leaves.
The TANNA
and the TANNA leaves. This is
they're finally legal.
Yeah.
Yes.
like what part of the mummification process, right? And then there were
Well, kind of like what Kurt Siodmak did with the Wolfman. He created this whole thing about the full moon and the whole mythology of the werewolf.
Right.
They did the same thing with the mummy, and that is the idea that you brew these leaves, you heat them up and brew them, and you brew 3 TANNA leaves, and that brings the mummy to life. And then more like you do like 9, and that
no more than 9.
Go after,
Then it'll go berserk,
No more than 9.
And also, another thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I remember it, that the TANNA leaves were extinct. Those plants don't grow anymore, and so there's
they have
limited
like
stash of TANNA leaves.
Right. But this first sequel, Mummy's Hand, has Dick Foran, Wallace Ford, Peggy Moran, George Zucco, of course. Cecil Kellaway, and it's another kind of finding a mummy's tomb and unearthing it, and the mummy enacts revenge. But it's a really fun movie. It's got great atmosphere. It's like I said, if you want, when you think of those movies were shown on like,
and anytime that stuff's on, I watch it. I just don't. It's like
it's a different kind of movie from the 30s films, but it's still, again, for me, it's really enjoyable.
And as we go into the 40s, into the late 40s, as they started winding down, these films were starting to lose money, and then Abbott and Costello runs in everybody.
Sure, but before that, like Chaney, who of course had been the Wolfman, he also did Son of Dracula.
Lon Chaney Jr.
Right.
Jr.
So after The Mummy's Hand, which did well enough because it was not done it wasn't that expensive, they churned it out. 2 years later, they did The Mummy's Tomb. Also, this is the first one with Lon Chaney Jr. And he's
interesting story device in that one, considering it follows up what happens to the characters in the previous film.
Well,
I don't want to give that away.
I only say that in The Mummy's Hand is kind of a little lighthearted. It's more like an action adventure mixed with horror.
Yes.
The Mummy's Tomb is a straight out revenge movie, and it is dark and
it's pretty dark,
pretty gruesome, and a lot of kills in that one. And that brings back the characters from the last film. George Zuko's back. It takes place now in America. They bring the mummy to Massachusetts, and it's basically a revenge film. This is the first film
or
with Chaney.
Mummachusetts. I'm sorry. I'm you know what? I'm going to go to bed.
But that's the Chaney mummy makeup by Jack Pierce is the mummy makeup that most kids our age remember, because that's the one that the Aurora model kit was made from.
Yep.
So many toys and promotional ephemera that you see. That's that mummy.
Masks available that you could buy. That were the masks.
Right. And that's a great one. And it has Turhan Bey in it.
He's always good.
Yeah.
Don't they go to some university to find the answer in that one? Isn't there
I think it's in the next one.
I think it's in the next one, yeah.
Okay. I remember one of them where they're going to they have to research the answers about a deal.
Right.
Which is the one that has the woman with the stripe in her hair.
Yes, well, the Mummy's Ghost, which was the next one. That was one. And John Carradine is in this one. There's always the heavy, the Egyptian heavy in each one. Like in the Mummy's Hand, it was George Zuko. Then in Mummy's Tomb, Zuko passes it on to Turhan Bey. And then Mummy's Ghost, George Zuko still around, and he passes it up to John Carradine. But the Mummy's Ghost is the cool one because that introduces, once again, much more heavily the reincarnation idea. And now it's the idea that Kharis wants to be reunited with Princess Ananka.
Right.
And this one is cool because there's a character who kind of becomes possessed by Princess Ananka. A modern day woman, becomes overtaken by the spirit of the princess. And that's the one where actually, of all the Lon Chaney Jr. films, Chaney gets to actually show some real emotive layers because he's longing to be reunited with his love. There's a little bit of that, which you don't really get in the other ones. So that one has a little bit more substance to it. But then even the last one, Mummy's Curse, now you have Martin Koslek in the baddie role. And that one goes even a step further where Princess Ananka is literally revived into physical form. And that's played by Virginia Christine, who was in a lot of these films. And she later became famous for being Mrs. Olsen in the Folgers coffee commercials. Yeah. But Mummy's Curse has a fantastic reviving Ananka scene where she emerges from the swamp and the sun rays revive her into a beautiful form. It's a great scene. So again, all these movies, the last two are done in the same year. They're released in the same year. But the 4 Mummies Universal sequels I still really enjoy. And what's interesting too is that all of them, it's the one time where you have a recurring mummy character in Kharis. I don't think they did that until later in the 90s films. They brought back that same mummy character. But Kharis, I was always disappointed that they didn't use him in some of the monster mashes. I would love to have seen. I would have loved to have seen Dracula controlling Kharis to send him out to do stuff. It could have been great. House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula. They should have had another one with Kharis.
Well, because Kharis wasn't all that different than the Glenn Strange Frankenstein. I mean,
but they could have done something with it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Bring back Karloff's mummy. That would have made sense.
Sure.
But I see those mummy movies. Look, I understand the charm of it now, but I remember as a kid, and even when I revisited them not too long ago, I just, they're not even that long. And I feel like after about the half-hour point, I'm kind of like, all right, let's wrap this up. I just don't think.
That was a pun.
The show works on so many levels.
And again, I love Abbott and Costello meets the Mummy.
Yeah, which is strange. They changed it to Claris instead of Kharis. So they didn't
Right.
even get
It's
the
funny
name
because
right.
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Which probably that's how Lou Costello pronounced it. So they just,
Yeah.
That is a fun film, though. That is fun.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
okay.
really related to the other films, though. But it's kind of like
No,
having
but
to-
I like the last 3
Yeah.
minutes of that movie where he puts on the tux and it's a one-piece jumpsuit where he has the zipper with the tie
yeah.
and Luke puts on his.
also, they start off, they're like working as custodians at the museum.
Sure.
Like
I forget.
Yeah, or something. Yeah. But yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
that's
I
fun.
just
But
so that character which is so slow, and after the fourth film or third film, this does not frighten me in any way. I like the atmosphere of a universal horror film. That part I'm always going to enjoy. I
The
love seeing
music.
the music. I
music,
love
the
those
character actors.
George
Yeah,
Zucco can do
I gotta
no
say,
wrong.
I have the same feeling with a lot of the Dracula films that were done during that era, and a lot of the Frankenstein films.
yeah, really, all the sequels.
They're
You can
all
say that for all those
thoroughly
Universal
involved.
sequels.
But I felt those were way more fun than the Mummy movies.
Well, I
they
gotta say,
were.
the first few Frankensteins are amazing. When they're still Karloff and it's still
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Although
but
I
when you
I
get
think
later
Ghost is
on-
a good movie.
But Ghost is just like one of the Mummy sequels, though. It's the same kind of
But
thing.
it's just more. It's more fun. It's not the same. I feel like it's the same kind of beats again and again and again. And
Well, I gotta say, I think the Mummy films don't have great secondary characters for the most part until you get to Abbott and Costello. They're not. They are not populated like the Frankenstein movies and the Dracula movies.
yeah, you
they
get
all-
Igor, and
Well, they have Igor, and they have Renfield, and the mummies never really.
Yeah, well, they have the bad guy that
is
revived the Mummy.
and
Well, you have-
again, George
you have
Zucco is
Carradine.
fun, but
Yeah.
and Carradine's fine, but again, they're not. There's none.
They're not-
Nobody in
they're
any
not
of those
fleshed
films
out or
is like Dwight
interesting.
Fry.
Yeah, I
There's
suppose.
so much of a mummy movie is laying pipe too. You got to explain to the audience how it worked and like.
Yeah, in fact,
Kind
one
of.
of them has. There's a couple of them, or at least one of them I know that uses just an extensive recap of the first Mummy movie.
Well, even though The Mummy's Hand, the first sequel, was not related to the first Mummy, they used footage of the flashback of when
Okay.
Karloff. They would show Karloff. You'd see Karloff in
Oh right,
far
yeah.
far
the back.
shots, but then
On the
in the
back.
close-ups they got Tom Tyler.
Yeah.
They
Wasn't he
reworked.
credited in the film when they promoted it too?
I don't know about that, but I know
Well,
that they reworked
maybe
Tom
advanced.
Tyler's background to work for that.
And Sean, what bugged me about it too is when the mummy or the Karloff character goes to the idol, the item that he takes out is supposed to be the scroll
Right.
that tells you the secret of coming back to life, reincarnation.
Right.
But
Scroll
then in
of
these
Thoth.
yes, but in these other movies, it's he opens it and and first when I saw it, I go leaves.
Yes, Chaney leaves, right.
And so I thought, did someone pull a joke on him? He goes, no, those are the
no one's
Chaney
cleaned this drawer for thousands
That
of
was
years.
just efficient filmmaking by Universal. Instead of
But
they
it's
saved
also-
a couple of shots by just redoing some.
That's
Yeah.
also where you go when you have the film within the film that wins the Academy Award. You can never show that film within the film because it would reach that
The
height.
rights. Yeah.
Right.
The writer was going, "What am I supposed to write?" Like Wolfbane from the Wolfman. Let's just have it be something.
Yeah,
Simple.
Tanna leaves.
Don't they also play fast and loose with the locations in these sequels? Like,
They do.
okay, they don't really explain how the mummy got to
Not
Louisiana.
really. The Mummy's Hand was
Right.
still in Egypt, and then
Yes,
Mummy's
that's
Tomb
right.
and Mummy's Ghost were in Massachusetts, and then the last one somehow now is in Louisiana with Cajuns and stuff.
Right.
But it works still for the atmosphere of that location.
They're a mess. They're a fucking mess.
all the horror Universal
No, they're not.
sequels,
No,
they
no.
play fast and loose with
They're
all
not
the
a mess like
consistency.
the Mummies movies.
Why do you hate mummies?
Because
What have you got against the poor mummy?
I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah, how many times did Lawrence Talbot die and he ended up he's like at a castle in Transylvania, then he's in New
But
York
he's a
or
more-
whatever.
but
Like he's all over the place.
But
It
he's
makes
a-
more
I
sense
would
with a mummy.
He is a
Makes
more
more sense.
interesting character, I think.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you're
Oh,
right. That the
sure,
mummy,
yeah.
I mean, absolutely. The original mummy, like you said, they were smart to have him become Ardith Bey so that you can have a character that speaks and interacts with people. Yes, totally. I mean, you're right. But I still love all those mummies.
I enjoy them for what they are, but they're certainly not my favorite horror films.
Can I say-
Whereas in 1959, when Hammer did their
Sure.
version of the Mummy, which
Right.
Which was really a remake. Yeah.
of all those movies, of all those
That's right. He's
later
playing
Mummy
Kharis.
movies, they
He's
kind of
playing the Kharis
Yeah.
character. Yeah.
and that they mashed them all together, all those storylines.
yeah.
But now you've got this Christopher Lee Mummy that is
Right.
terrifying.
Yeah.
And
Still a lumbering boogeyman, but well, force of nature.
he's lumbering, but when he needs to move quickly in
Yeah.
certain cases, he's able to do it. And what you really get too is the imposingness and the strength of a mummy.
Yes.
You
And
really
because
get that
it's
with
like-
Christopher Lee.
Yeah, and because you have better production values, and you see in his eyes, and you have it's
Well, it's
just
also color.
infused new energy and blood into that concept.
Yeah.
You know?
But that is I think that's a great mummy movie.
It's very good. Yeah,
Apparently there's a sequence in the film where Christopher Lee was told, okay, you got to break through the door, and we want you to
glass door. Yeah,
when you come through the door, we want you to go for the guy. We want you to stare at that guy, and we want your eyes to be like piercing. Well, apparently, as the story goes, when he went through the door, he dislocated his shoulder
wow.
and was in so much pain when he came in, but he stayed in character, and he goes to the guy to grab him, and the look in Christopher Lee's eyes as the mummy is real, like pain and horror
Wow.
and terror.
Use it,
Because
use it.
And he's like,
There's a scene.
you know-
There's a scene in
yeah.
that movie. There's a scene in that movie where it's so Peter Cushing is the son
yeah.
of the guy who's leading the expedition to find this mummy. So of course he has unleashed this curse that brings the mummy back to life, and so this whole thing has driven him crazy. He witnesses this mummy come to life, and it drives him bonkers. So
Right.
now he's in an insane asylum, and he's got this little room, and the mummy's coming for him. And you hear the mummy coming for him from outside the window, and you just see this guy sitting in his little cell looking at this little window and hearing the sounds, and then you see the shadow, and they just unroll this thing just so gradually, and next thing you know, you see the arm go through the window, and you really feel like you're the victim in that room, and this thing is
Yeah.
coming to get you. It's just
yeah.
done. I mean, Terrence Fisher, you got the great Terrence Fisher of Horror of Dracula and Curse of Frankenstein fame helming this
Yeah.
thing, and it's just so effective and scary. And that's
Plus-
one that I watched recently too, and that
Yeah.
one still does unnerve me.
And Christopher Lee is so tall and imposing. So you comparing Christopher Lee to Lon Chaney Jr., even Tom Tyler, he makes for a really imposing mummy.
Yeah, he seems
Yeah.
fit.
Yeah.
And also,
oh yeah, it's funny you should say that, because as I love Lon Chaney Jr., I really do, but his mummy had a bit of a little gut,
Yeah.
Yeah.
his
So
little
did his
meaty
Dracula.
little,
as we
his
said,
little round
he
face.
looked too
Yeah.
well fed.
Yeah. That's why I always thought of
Yeah, what's-
Chaney Jr. in Son of Dracula too. He's like pretty. He's kind of like he's like hitting the blood
It
banks
was
a lot.
too much blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But Christopher Lee's one of the best mummies in cinema.
I think so too. I have to say, other than Boris Karloff, because it's really hard to.
It's a different kind of movie too.
Right, it is a
Right.
different movie. Also, what was the Japanese mummy film of that similar era that?
I don't know. What's that one?
I can't even remember what it's called. You know what? It might have been the Japanese Frankenstein, actually, but he's in bandages. But maybe I'm just remembering something else.
What I can tell you is that there is an episode of Ultraman
yeah, totally.
called Cry of the Mummy.
Yeah.
Cry of the Mummy. And it's 1966, the 12th episode of Ultraman. And it's your standard mummy story. They
Right.
discover this mummy, and through a series of circumstances, the mummy is brought to life. It goes on a killing spree. They shoot this thing down, but as it's dying, it cries out, and this cry awakens this giant monster. So as he's dying, he gives life to a kaiju. And the mummy itself looks like a gorilla mummy. It's like, imagine a gorilla mask with some mummy bandages and then glowing eyes. Of course, the eyes always have to glow.
Of gorilla heads.
Yeah,
so.
a gorilla head. So this thing dies. And so I'm really enjoying this episode up until the point where the giant monster shows up. Dodongo.
Yeah.
Dodongo.
Great name.
Dodongo. And Dodongo looks like, imagine a really fancy looking pantomime horse. It's clearly two guys in a monster horse costume. And I think there's even a point where Ultraman jumps on the thing and like it's like a bucking bronco deal.
Fantastic.
It's one of my least favorite monsters from that
It doesn't
series.
seem very believable.
and like, why would you like if it's an Egyptian or a mummy thing? Why a horse? Why
Well,
how
speaking
about a
of that,
snake or something? Or
the idea
cobra.
of shoehorning mummies in out of Egypt is the Aztec Mummies series in Mexico. You had,
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
they didn't really have Egyptian style mummies yet. They had pyramids.
Yeah.
So
right,
and wrestlers. They had a lot of wrestlers and
wrestlers.
Wait, in the Aztecs?
But
There must have been some Aztec wrestlers. I'm
There
assuming.
was. Well, the first Aztec Mummy movie was 1957, and it was like another reincarnation thing where like this mummy known as Popoca wants to go after the reincarnation of his princess, and there's like a bracelet and a breastplate that this evil villain's after.
Wait, is this the
mummy's-
Aztec mummy?
Yes, the mummy's
Okay.
protecting that, and there's like this villain named the Bat, and he's after
Right.
this treasure, and the mummy's protecting it. And they made a series of films, and like the next one had a masked wrestler, who looked a lot just like Santo, named Angel, and he's a Curse of the Aztec Mummy. And of course, the best one was the robot versus the Aztec Mummy. There's a robot that the villain creates to fight the mummy. It's ridiculous.
And
Great.
in classic mummy movie fashion, what they do is they take footage from the early Aztec mummy movies, the early,
Yes.
the previous one,
that also
and
saves
just
you
play it
a
again
production
before the
Yes.
robot shows up.
I think every Aztec Mummy sequel uses the same flashback footage over and over.
Okay,
But I think
okay.
my favorite was the wrestling women versus
Yes,
the
Wrestling One versus the Aztec Mummy, where the
I
mummy
remember-
can turn that one. The mummy can turn into a bat, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
It's crazy. There's,
Yeah.
But I think that for me, mummy movies are an afternoon event. I don't know why, but almost every time I've watched a mummy film, it was at 3 p.m.
Okay,
I don't know why, but it was like the kids. Like when I was growing up, we had like the noonday movie on Saturday mornings.
Yeah. Sure.
They'd have horror films, and I swear, almost every time I'd see a mummy film, it was never at night,
Okay.
unless it was the original mummy.
I think
So-
they're probably, for the most part, when it comes to horror, a little more kid friendly. Obviously, Larry's daughter was freaked out by the whole being buried alive thing, which I can relate to, by the way, because that's like one of my biggest fears.
Right.
Because that scene is scary. And what's interesting also when you talk about the Hammer mummy movie is
Yeah.
that they do that whole sequence as well, where they
Yeah.
show what originally happened to Kharis, and
But they go a step further.
but they get
Yeah.
violent with
They
it.
do.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
actually his tongue is cut out, and
Yeah.
you see the tongue
Tongue.
cut out,
Right.
Right.
and
I
that's
show my
that's
daughter
not an
that.
afternoon.
But what's interesting is that the later Hammer mummy films, they're not direct sequels to that one. They're always
No.
a different mummy, actually.
I
Yeah.
think they're more fun, by the way, than the Universal ones.
What do you think of the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb? Because that's the one where like they bring it to America, and Fred Clark is the guy who's like he's the Barnum and Bailey guy who wants to he's the huckster who wants to
That's
exploit
actually
the mummy.
Of the ones where there's an actual mummy in the movie. That's one of my favorite of the sequels.
Right, right.
I think there were only 3 with the mummy. So
Yeah,
it's,
there's Curse of the Mummy's Tomb was the first one. Yeah.
Okay,
And that
yeah.
was that's where they bring it back to America.
yeah, I do enjoy that one. The
Yeah,
one
but-
after that is okay. It's
The
yeah.
Mummy Shroud. That's a little. That's a
And the
weird
mummy
one
looks
because
weird, right? The
the
mummy.
looks. It's kind of interesting. That one's interesting because it's like a mummy of a young prince is discovered, and the guardian mummy comes to go after the people to protect that mummy. In other words, it's a
the mummy.
mummy
It's the
protecting-
mummy Gorgo.
yeah, protecting another mummy kind of because like he was like assigned to protect the prince. So that was kind of interesting. But Matt, I'm sure you agree. To me,
Oh, here we go.
the most interesting Hammer film after the original Mummy one is Blood from the Mummy's Tomb,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
really more it's a reincarnation thing, and it's based loosely on Bram Stoker's Jewel of the Seven Stars story.
Right.
And it's basically a professor played by the great Andrew Keir, who's the greatest Quatermass ever.
Oh yes.
He brings back the sarcophagus of an Egyptian princess, and he has this incredibly hot daughter, played by Valerie Leon, who becomes possessed by the spirit of this evil queen princess. And but it's really well done. That's a really good one. It's very stylish.
It's creepy. There is no actual bandaged mummy in it, but
Right. But
But the supernatural stuff and just I think the direction of the movie and they do a lot of really nice things with atmosphere and mood.
Yeah,
and
it's really good.
And Valerie Leon is like
Yeah, she
achingly
is.
stunning.
Is that the one where it's the perfectly preserved princess?
Yes, and like she
Yeah.
was
And
like
she has a mummified hand.
she had her hand cut off
Yes.
because she
Yes.
was evil.
Yeah.
And there's like
Yeah,
a right.
okay.
Yeah.
No,
It's got-
she's the hottest of the mummies.
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Yeah.
She would have actually made a great Vampirella, actually.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, yes.
yeah. Although
here's-
there's quite a few of the British hotties that would have made a good.
True. But the thing about Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, people back in the day legitimately thought that movie was cursed because in that film, Peter Cushing was originally scheduled to play
Yep.
the character, and they did 1 day of shooting with Peter Cushing as the professor, and then he got a call that his wife was in the hospital and she died.
No.
So
Yeah.
there's like one still I've seen of like Cushing with Valerie Leon, and so they did shoot like at least 1 day worth with Cushing.
Right.
So Andrew Keir had to be like take over the role, and he did great. But also then as the movie was almost over,
Yes.
director Seth Holt had a heart attack and died.
Hmm.
So Michael Carreras, one of the big producers at Hammer, had to come in and finish directing the movie. So it was plagued by lots of real life tragedy, and it's kind of amazing the movie came out as good as it was.
But a lot of films too. Do you remember that there was always talk of cursed films?
Oh sure, yeah,
Sure, yeah.
Because I always do the joke anytime someone dies for like a film from the 30s now, I always say the Wizard of Oz Curse Strikes Again.
Yeah.
right.
Right, yeah.
I never, that was the kind of thing. There were many cursed films where people that worked on it died during production
Sure.
or, and it's,
That goes all the way back to the actual discovery of King Tut's tomb because people who died and they thought it was a curse. Even though like hundreds of people went into the tomb, but like they still thought it was a curse.
Whereas human beings like to look for patterns. What we don't remember is how many people died on the set of some Busby Berkeley musical. It's always the scary movie.
I think too, it was the PR departments of horror films would play that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right.
That's the other thing is I remember really low budget films. You'd always hear like rumors or about the stuntman dying.
Sure.
Or a particular stunt. That would be something I've got to see the scene if they kept it in,
Right.
Yeah, but that is a personal favorite of mine, Sean.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
really
mine
is a
too.
good one. It really stands out from the other Hammer sequels to me.
I agree.
But Matt, I think there's one that I think you'll agree that is really different for a mummy film from the 50s.
Lay it on me.
That I know you know about, and it's a pretty scary one too. It's from 1957, The Pharaoh's Curse.
Oh my God! You know what? I totally forgot about that one. But
That's
that is a good one. That's
a really interesting one because it's your kind of classic, archaeologists dig up a tomb and are cursed, but In this one, it's like a crew member from the archaeological team is turned into a mummy.
Yes, yeah.
It's really weird.
That's
but
one
it
you would
works.
always see. You would always see pictures of that in
Yeah,
horror
because
movie books.
He slowly becomes more and more withered
Yes.
and desiccated, and it looks really good. And like he's hiding in the tomb. There's like a secret passage opens, and he comes out, and he's drinking people's blood. At one point, somebody grabs him and he tears his arm off, and it's really cool. It's like
Yeah,
really
that is a
different.
cool one.
There's that whole, I don't know, that's the whole rules of horror films. How, do mummies really drink blood? Isn't that more?
According to this movie.
Yeah.
I say if it's a made up thing to begin with, you can change the rules as long as they're consistent within your movie.
Right.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I used to be a purist of the rules. They had to follow.
Well, that's Larry. Larry's
Okay,
very
whatever
pure.
movie I was in, but I'll go along with that. That's valid.
How
That's like
about how do you feel about fast mummies?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The whole
I want a
fast
running mummy.
running mummy would be cool, I think.
Yeah, and then they keep tripping on the bandages. That would be great.
Right.
Well,
Has there ever been a fast mummy?
Well, yeah, in the
there's-
later ones, but there were
Oh, right.
other films
Yeah.
that had mummies in it before we get there.
Yeah, well, I'd
Yeah.
say if you want like a kind of fast one, see, to me, there actually were some interesting permutations to the classic mummy mold. Like, for instance, in 1981, you had basically a kind of gore mummy movie. It was called Dawn of the Mummy.
I
Right.
just saw that this afternoon.
Yeah, and it's basically
Yeah.
it's like it's very much inspired by like the Italian gore
Zombie
films
movies,
because
yeah.
it's more like a zombie movie, but it's a mummy. But not only is the mummy coming to life, he also raises all these like slaves and original slaves from the time.
It's like a
they're
mummy
like
army.
zombies. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool, and it's ridiculous. It's like
It
fashion
takes
models.
Here's the thing.
It's like-
Like I watch it, and if I did not have any kind of fast forward function on what I was watching it on, it
Right.
could have been a problem. But
right.
but considering that I had it when the actual mummy,
Yeah, once you get to the mummy action.
once you get to the mummy stuff, it's actually pretty good, and just
yeah.
the fact that it is gory and
Yeah.
the mummy is pretty scary looking.
Pretty scary, like it's basically like fashion models having a photo shoot at a tomb, and they
In a tomb, because they pop in while there's like some Tomb Raider guys who are trying to find the mummy's treasure, but
right.
but
It's
then they
ridiculous,
work
but-
out a deal where you guys can film your photo shoot and we'll look for the
Yeah.
treasure.
time you had also had G.I. Joe in the mummy's tomb.
Oh yeah, that was a great
Oh,
toy.
yeah.
I love that toy.
But there was
stuff.
But there was a
There
flaw.
There was a flaw. We all know the flaw of that
What's the
toy,
flaw?
though.
Tell us the
Well,
flaw.
Apparently, the flaw with that particular toy and that action thing was the same flaw that they did with others, and that was G.I. Joe is 12 inches tall, and the mummy in his tomb is like small,
Yeah,
it's like
he's
half
tiny.
the size. And I remember
But
thinking,
it's so he could fit in that sarcophagus.
no. But
Tutankhamun?
a little
Yeah.
mummy.
He was
You
just
know,
he was
the
just a
child
boy
mummy.
No.
There's lots
I
of small
want a
coffins.
big mummy. But see, the funny thing is, they did the exact same thing when it came to they call it the pygmy gorilla because
Oh,
they
yeah.
couldn't make a big size gorilla. They make a little one.
It was
It's
a
like,
pygmy mummy.
and then there was the pig, and then there was the abominable snow monster, and that was the other thing. They had
It's the
a 12
pygmy
inch-
abominable
was
snow
small?
monster.
He was
Yes.
small too, Larry?
Yes.
Really?
I have
Sure.
to
They're-
I have
they-
to
they
think
save
it,
money.
and it's so
That's
frustrating
G.I.
because
Joe
it's like,
kinda went-
no, think about it. You're
Well,
out in the
stop
snow. When
being
you think of the
World War II.
abominable snow monster, we're
In
thinking of
Vietnam.
someone who's supposed to be giant, and it's like there's the G.I. Joe and the abominable snow monster. Even in the picture, it looks like the abominable snow monster is like 12 feet tall, but when you get him, he's like half the size. But I will say that later on in the 2000s, Hasbro did
They did a bigger one.
They
Oh, really?
did a bigger one, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's a really great
Yeah.
toy.
Dave, what were you saying about Vietnam? What?
Well, I just thought when G.I. Joe went away from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and he had he had the beard,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
Life Like
actually-
Here.
Well, that was his adventure. That was the adventure team thing.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to try
That
to
was
get
the G.I.
away
Joe
from
era
war.
I liked. Yeah.
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 And-
I was more blood and guts and let's kill.
Yeah, I
someone.
like the eagle eyes G.I. Joe, where you could move his eyes, which I called him Paranoid Joe. Because I think that he had
I know we're
seen
totally
a
off.
lot of shit. He had
What
seen a
about
lot of shit, and so it was a lot of like,
relevance
Yeah.
figure where you can look through his eye.
That was $6
Oh,
million
that's
man.
Mike Powers,
$6
right?
million man.
Or
Yeah.
no, Mike Powers had the blinking
bought-
eye,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the blinking
Larry?
eye. Yes, the blinking eye. Yeah.
Did they ever have a G.I. Joe like bad back G.I. Joe? Like he just had a bad back?
No, but
Ran out of benefits, G.I. Joe.
Or G.I. Joe who just doesn't want to talk about it.
That's funny. You pull a string and it's just nothing. It's just.
I think in terms of mummies, to get back onto the mummies track, we're ignoring the
Thank you.
The Groovy Ghoulies had mummy.
Yes,
Right.
he did.
Right.
And
He-
which
he
I
did
hate.
little
Just
little
mummy.
news. It was no, he did newscast. It was called the Mummy Wrap Up, and he would do little newscasts.
Wrap
Do you
up.
remember,
See?
do you remember his voice? Do you guys
Mummy.
remember? Do you remember his voice?
What was
Yeah,
the
it was
voice?
cool.
This is without prompting. I think it sounded like Ed Wynn.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was made to
Wow.
sound. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys, there's a mummy. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm scary.
That's why they don't talk.
You're right.
Because when they do
that-
talk, it's Ed
again,
Wynn.
we've brought this up before. That is the one mummy that I hate the most, because
Wow.
Mummy.
that mummy and the other characters, Frankenstein, the dragon.
Well, yeah, it's a kids' cartoon show.
Daddy, and they were all kind of goofy and funny.
Yeah,
I
they
felt
were
They were
goofy. It was
making
a cartoon.
fun of monsters.
Yeah.
And that mummy, he also he had kind of like big feet and stuff. It just didn't make any sense.
Okay.
He always had a smile on his face.
Well, all right. Well, then, how do you feel about the Mad Monster Party mummy?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, because that's also goofy. and
He doesn't
silly.
speak though. He doesn't.
He does
speak.
not
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
No, he does not speak.
But he has that great
He
song.
wears that
for- they
crown
do.
thing,
Yeah.
and he has the little necklace, and
Yeah, but the skeleton band does the great song. It's the mummy.
It's the mummy.
Yeah, the whole musical number. He gets a whole musical
The
number. It's awesome.
mummy. That's great.
Isn't it interesting? The mummy gets his due. He gets, they actually do a song about it.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
That's great. So talking about Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, which is based on the Bram Stoker.
Speaking of animated specials,
Yeah.
Right.
The Jewel of the Seven Stars idea was later done again in 1980. They tried to do a much classier kind of star-studded approach, and that was The Awakening with Charlton
Right.
Heston,
Yes.
Stephanie Zimbalist, and Susanna York. And this movie doesn't get a very good rap, and it is definitely not the most exciting film.
I've never
but
gotten
is-
through it. I've tried.
Yeah, it's a little on the tepid side, but it's, if we give it a shot, it's very stylishly done. It does stick to the story very closely. It's basically the same story. This time it's Stephanie Zimbalist is Heston's daughter, and she gets possessed by the spirit of the evil Egyptian princess. The thing is, it has a pretty weak ending, and it doesn't quite work, but it's not bad. It's very well photographed, but that was like the early 80s mini revival of mummy films, because you had Dawn of the Mummy, you had The Awakening.
And Time Walker.
Yes, I actually enjoy Time Walker.
I do too.
Yeah,
And there's no way that I can defend this movie.
yeah. No, it's a super cheesy movie. It's like Ben Murphy is this professor who brings back a sarcophagus, and there's like this mummy in it, but the mummy isn't maybe really a mummy. I don't want to give anything away.
I think
they
you
kind
can
of
give it
give
away.
it.
You can give
They
it
kind of
away.
give away in the poster. No, basically, it's
It's an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, who at the time back then in Egypt was entombed and wrapped up as a mummy, and now he's after these crystals that were buried with him in the sarcophagus. But some student grabs the crystals.
Kevin Brophy,
Yeah, Luke,
who
Luke
played
Lucan.
Lucan the Wolf Boy.
Yeah, he's like the wacky student who steals the crystals, and so now this mummy. It's an extraterrestrial alien wrapped up in mummy bandages, wandering around a college campus getting the crystals. But there's like this fungus that gets on people and kills them. It's ridiculous.
Well,
But
and
it's
then
really
also,
fun.
this is the thing I love is that Kevin Brophy, he finds these crystals because he's X-raying the sarcophagus and finds them.
Right.
And he takes them and like he tries to take them to a pawn shop. Now, these are crystals from an Egyptian tomb. And he goes to like a pawn shop and won't get any money. He ends up like giving them to all his friends.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's pretty
so
ridiculous.
it's ridiculous, but I have to say it's so ridiculous that I enjoy it.
Yeah, James Cameron is in it.
Yeah,
Sherry
James Cameron.
Belafonte for some reason.
Yeah,
is
one
in
of
it.
her finest role.
Yeah, that's a good one in a cheesy way.
Now, this is one that you turned me on to. We've talked about it before, but it does have a pretty cool mummy, and that's Assignment Terror.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
totally.
Yeah,
Under the
this is
Paul
the
Naschy
Paul
Spanish
Naschy monster mashup.
Yeah, actually has a pretty cool mummy. It's kind of uniquely. The face is exposed.
I like the mummy.
Yeah, it's creepy. Doesn't talk. And it's pretty strong, pretty powerful. That's
Yeah.
a good one. Yeah.
Paul Naschy did a dedicated mummy movie, Vengeance
Yes.
of the Mummy,
Right.
in
Oh, really?
75.
Yeah.
Any good?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's pretty lavish for a Naschy film, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of it's shot on location in London.
Yeah,
And the funny thing about it is all the characters are British, but they're speaking Spanish.
Yeah, yeah, that's weird.
And Naschy actually plays 3 different parts. He plays
Yeah.
the mummy and the George Zucco character and the
Right.
original evil Pharaoh who gets murdered and buried alive.
Wow.
The remarkable thing about this is that the mummy has a psychic connection to the priest, and
Mhm.
so you can actually hear his thoughts.
Mhm.
So he doesn't speak, but you can hear him.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Does he sound like Edwin?
No,
Yeah.
he doesn't.
Oh my God.
But, of course, his thoughts are in Spanish also. But,
Right.
and the protagonist is played by Jack Taylor, who was in a bunch of movies like
Yeah, tons of these.
Succubus and The Crawling Eye and Where Time Began. And as far as the Naschy filmography, it's one of the better ones for sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's got gore. It's got
A lot of
hot
gore.
chicks. Yeah.
I'll check
A
it
lot of
out.
hot chicks. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what do you guys think about the Monster Squad?
Yeah, that's a pretty good mummy, actually.
Rides the line between not too scary, like palatable
Yeah.
for kids,
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
but still pretty creepy.
Yep, that's a good one.
Tall, slender mummy.
Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Different
All right.
from the standard Lon Chaney Jr. version. You know,
Right, right.
The pot belly, but yeah.
Hey, Dave, here's one for you. Superman, The Mummy Strikes, the animated one. Do you know this? Have you ever seen this? Oh, yeah. This is the Fleischer Superman
yeah.
cartoons, and they do a mummy one. And in this one, there's a curse on this Egyptian sarcophagus, and there's someone who is killed, and the crime is blamed on someone else, but then you find out that there's something in the sarcophagus that killed the person. And when the sarcophagus tries to strike again, it misses, and that somehow launches into life these protectors of the tomb. And so there are 4 mummies, but they're not in bandages for very long. They're like these really big Egyptian guys with the headdress and everything. And so they come out of their sarcophaguses, and the bandages just immediately kind of fall away, and now they're all fighting Superman. But that's a really fun one, and that's another one too. If you like those Fleischer cartoons, I always loved what they did with
I
color.
love them.
I think it's
And-
Those
Yeah.
are beautiful. I don't remember this one though, Matt.
Yeah, I have it on 16 actually.
Ah, well, I have to see that one.
And if we're going to talk about animated, Johnny Quest.
I was just going to say the Curse of Anubis.
You know, and I was just thinking, just in general, in terms of like in television and film, more television, like episodic, usually it was just the curse. It wasn't as much about the mummies, a real mummy.
Yeah, like the curse
Right.
brings the mummy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it'd even be like, there wasn't really a mummy. It was so-and-so who died. You know, there
Right,
were films where they never showed a mummy, where guys would stuff would happen, and they'd blame it on the mummy or the curse.
Right.
Or the curse, right.
But
Right.
it was really somebody doing it.
Which
Right.
is like Wheeler and Woolsey, Mummies.
Yeah.
Yes,
Or like
but
a
also
Scooby-Doo
every-
Uh,
episode.
Every Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, every
right,
Scooby,
right.
right, yeah. Which,
Well,
again, that's the thing that
oh.
always annoyed me about that show.
I just felt one day the Scooby Doo they're going to encounter a real monster.
Well,
or a
Yeah.
I
mummy.
think they have since
Yeah,
the
they
old
have
days.
since
They
then.
have
it was
since the
Don
old days.
Knotts, wasn't it? Don Knotts was the actual real
Mummy.
No, he just. Don Knotts appeared as-
I'm the monster.
Well, they did do
Cheers
another.
in the throat.
They did another Aztec mummy though in a great episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker. That was
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot
Legacy
about
of
that one,
Terror.
too.
And that was like there were these killings happening in Chicago, and they're like people's hearts are being torn out.
Yeah.
And it was this whole, they had to tear out a number of hearts to bring back the mummy, and the mummy was going around killing people. And it was like a number of sacrifices that had to take place, but the last sacrifice had to be from someone who was willing to be sacrificed. it was going to be Eric Estrada was the guy who was going to be sacrificed, but the mummy is really scary in this one. And Kolchak, of course, he's being chased by him. It's a great one.
I thought there's rarely a Kolchak where it's just not great.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree with you there.
Handle, you kind of go, they start running out of mythology as they go.
Sure.
To say the least.
Yeah. One of them but still.
Darren McGavin makes it's just
he saves it.
So watchable. Sure,
absolutely.
Are very familiar with that, but I'm telling you, that was one of the greatest series. They're waiting for the new one to come on.
Yep.
Originally on, and just they stand the test of time too.
Yeah, they do.
They aren't super dated in terms of he's still totally watchable.
Yeah,
the formula works.
His performance is pretty timeless.
It makes it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's so good.
Yeah.
At that disheveled, lovable
loner.
Would have been a detective if it was something else.
Yeah.
All right.
But he knows how to write.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He knows how to tell a story.
Okay, so we need to address this. The more modern mummy movies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
All that whole thing.
From 1999, The Mummy, directed by Stephen Sommers.
Very successful.
Now, I have to tell you guys, I loved that first one. I went and I was so surprised. I was actually so happy because to me, it's like the slow, lumbering mummy. It was gone in this movie. This was a more fast-paced, exciting mummy, and the mummy had an army.
It was. I would hesitate to call it a horror film. I would say it's more an adventure action
movie,
fantasy,
yes.
which is fine for what it was. I also enjoyed it too. I did.
I enjoyed it.
It's fine. It's a big budget, effects filled spectacle, and for what it is, it's enjoyable.
Yeah,
it gets the Indiana Jones treatment.
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
Yes, and there's humor, and I have to say, to me, it fits into that category of disposable entertainment.
Yeah.
After I came out, I never wanted to see it ever again.
I don't think I have seen it since I saw it.
No.
Yeah, it's not. It's good, but it's not.
It was fun.
It was fun at the time. I enjoyed it thoroughly at the time.
I don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
It's not like I say I have to watch this because it's on right now.
No.
I mean, yeah.
Never.
And they make it,
okay, Dave, let's say it's wintertime. You've got your pizza and your beer, and it's about 10 p.m. and you're flipping through the channels. You come across The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. Do you go, oh, here it is. Why don't I sit and watch my... Oh, you change the channel.
Yeah.
There's certain films that you flip through it and you just flip through it. It's like I won't even pause. Going through. Yeah.
I mean, Arnold Vosloo does make for an imposing mummy character. I did like the idea that he was slowly regenerating. That was cool.
There's a lot of interesting ideas about it and everything, but then. And I don't know if it was more of the later films, but how powerful all these powers that.
Well, that's the thing. Like he created sandstorms. You saw his face in the sandstorm. It got kind of ridiculous.
No. See, Sean, the cool thing about seeing his face in the sand, I thought that was really cool. That was the mummy using the power that he had to. Yeah,
he was more of an occult.
Behold, sand face.
Computer generating the computer. The experts, the animators, said we can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Sure, why not?
So I have to. Yeah,
which is another problem, by the way, because that movie, that CGI. I'm sorry, but CGI dates more than anything. Does. And when I go back to that thing now, I it's laughable. I can't even relate to it.
What was that, Sean?
I was going to say, I have to admit, I never saw either of the two sequels. I really didn't have any interest.
Sean!
The second one had no interest. But when I saw the trailer for the third one, I'm like, what the fuck is this? It was called Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, and it's Jet Li fighting martial arts, fighting CGI pharaohs.
That sounds good, actually.
Fuck? No, it looked awful.
They're making this for the Chinese market. That was
it was like Crouching
Yeah.
Tiger. Let's do that now with Mummy. Like, what?
that was like
Larry, tell me, I'm curious, what were the sequels like?
Okay,
Gently in.
look, I'm going to be honest with you, Sean. I actually think you would like The Mummy Returns from 2001, which was the sequel, because what essentially happens is, what I loved about this first Mummy was you have the Brendan Fraser and the Rachel Weisz character, and they get together. Well, now what happens? It's like 10 years later, and they actually got married. They had a kid, and they have this library in London and stuff, and it continues the story. And the kid is really, really neat. And where that goes, what's really cool is the mummy guy. If we recall, he was in love with Ankh-Suman, I guess the princess.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what's cool in the second film, Sean, that we don't get in the first film is there's this real woman that believes that she's the reincarnation of this.
So that's kind of like going back to the old Universal sequence.
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
And what she decides to do is to bring the real princess back, she has to kill herself. And it's really, really cool. And you get to a point in the film where both the Rachel Weisz character and the princess Ankh-Suman character, they're both in a situation where can they do what they need to do to save their loved ones? What they do, it's really great. So
is it still kind of more lighthearted kind of comedy adventure, or
it has the same kind of elements? I will say there's something in there that I know Matt wouldn't like, because I'm sure you guys have heard about the offshoot film called The Scorpion King, where they used The Rock, and yeah. He is this creature that's protecting one of these, Egyptian palaces, kind of a thing, where the two guys have to battle him. And the CGI, it's actually been criticized as the CGI in that film is not that great. But Sean, let me reel you back. I think you should see this one.
I will eventually, yeah.
Because it does have a really neat story where it goes. And also,
a phone call to Sean.
What? Say it again.
I'm saying just perhaps this could be handled with a phone call to Sean.
Yeah.
Sean likes to see things, and plus, look, if I didn't think it was worth his time, I'd say, oh, don't bother. Now the third one, I'd say, yes, Sean, I would say.
Has anybody seen that one? Is it?
Well, here
You've seen it? You've seen it, Larry?
I've seen most of it.
What does that mean? How did that happen? How did that
get through it?
I have to tell you, Rachel Weisz, when she was, remember, these first two films were very successful, and she loved playing the character. When she got the script for the third one, the son apparently is now 21 years old. She goes, whoa. Wait, my son is now 21? She goes, and she thought the script was ridiculous. She said, there's no way that this character, she didn't want any part of it. She was done with it.
I assumed that one didn't do as well.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
But I will say, though, it did create a franchise, and Universal loved it. It actually
because they can make a ride.
The ride is the best part. That's my favorite movie of all of them, is the ride.
And so there is a ride. There's a ride at Universal Studios that you guys can experience.
Yeah.
Now, the funny thing is,
explain something about these, just the fact that they were made in the first place, how this stuff works.
Go.
What happens is there's some executive at Universal says, we got a lot of properties.
Yeah, pick something.
We need to try to sell these again. We need to start a new franchise. I remember people having meetings about Woody Woodpecker, trying to get that. It's that kind of thing where
CGI Woodpecker. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
It can happen. It can still happen.
Do something with it, and then somebody looks at the script. They go, "God, nobody's going to watch this movie that forever, and it's explaining stuff." And
that fucking laugh.
And so, it's that stuff. Brendan Fraser attached. Okay.
Yeah, he's funny.
And then
I know you're right. I mean, that's the sad thing, is that Universal they own such precious commodity, precious
I have no idea what to do
properties.
with it.
No, they keep fucking trying to do the Mummy and fucking it up.
James, do you remember the man who ran Universal Studios? There was that period of time where this is what he was doing, what Dave was saying, where he was just trying to take all these properties, whether it be Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yes, they tried to sell that.
Sure.
And it was like, what properties do we have that we can put a new dress on it? Is it Lou Wasserman? I forget now.
Lou Wasserman might have been from further back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But there was the executive.
I believe it might have been the Seagram's guy.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're right.
I'm sorry, I don't remember
Universal
the
got
name.
sold, and I believe it was the Seagram's fortune. They bought it from.
Yes.
And that was the mentality,
sell it.
Dave. What do we own? What can we put a new dress on?
Yeah,
But
forget those piles and piles of original, well-written scripts. Forget those. Let's just keep remaking old stuff.
But the defense, though, Dave, that I will say is the Brendan Fraser Mummies with Stephen Sommers heading it elaborates. It goes into more detail. It
not
does.
Yes,
it's not a direct.
It's for the mass audience.
That's fine. There's no problem. I don't have any problem with that. But I think that what these studios should do with some of these properties is just re-release them like they used to do before the days of VCR and all that.
That'd be cool.
Put them in the theaters. Now, there are some theater chains that are doing it in limited runs, and of course, there's houses. But the studios could get behind this, and there was a re-release of. They always do it so limited, like Star Wars comes out for run
weekend or something, or
They did. Yeah, they released.
do this a lot more, but they don't want to make prints and send them to theaters anymore, and it's all digital now anyway.
Yeah.
But they want to be out of that business. That's the problem. They don't care if you go to the movie theater. They'd rather just stream it to you and not have to make have to do promos or anything like that. But I think people watch stuff because of the buzz of people seeing it in the theater. That's the main drive. Is like loving a film.
Sure.
And we were so thrilled to see a film come back on TV back in the days when you couldn't just
Oh, sure. Yeah. We've talked about that a million times where you just, you'd wait and maybe you'd get that TV guide and you'd see, God, it's coming Thursday. And, that was like your birthday.
Well, and I think now, like I've taken my daughter to a few of the ones that they do, like the Fathom events, does like
they re-released King Kong. I think the original King Kong was for a while. That was cool.
I mean, I took her to Sunset Boulevard.
That's awesome.
On a train, Dr. Strangelove, and I just think making that event and I wish more theaters were doing that and even let them run for a bit.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to theaters right now anyway because
Sure.
Right.
So has anybody other than me seen the 2017 Tom Cruise Mummy film?
See, this is what I wanted to get to. Brendan Fraser ones, these were fun. And then this whole thing with the Tom Cruise. But Sean and guys, we got to talk about how this thing came about.
How this came about is because of course every studio copies other studios when they're successful. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was huge, incredibly successful, and Universal geniuses thought, hey, we can have a shared universe too. What do we have? We have those monster guy characters, don't we? Yeah. Let's do the dark universe. We're going to do a star-studded 200 movies all about bringing back all the classic monsters.
We'll get the Frankenheimer and the
Frankenheimer and the Draken
and Foxman.
Guy. And it's going to be great. And so the result of that, the first movie out of the gate that was to represent the dark universe was The Mummy, directed by Alex Kurtzman, starring Tom Cruise, Sofia Boutella, Russell Crowe, like all these big stars, and this was going to be the one. And to me, similar to the Brendan Fraser films, the problem with this one was, to me, it wasn't a horror film. It was this action, adventure, fantasy thing, but it was never a horror. It was anything scary about it. It was CGI fest. There were some interesting, like some of the stuff I kind of like, but like overall, it's like Matt, you said, it's like disposable. You watch it, it's just kind of this soulless, multi-million-dollar effects movie, and shoehorning in all these obvious shared universe ideas.
Well, they were trying to get this thing off the ground.
But,
like Dr. Jekyll and
Sean, I'm going to go a step further, and it's something that makes me really mad. Okay, the film is called The Mummy. My first thought was Tom Cruise is playing the Mummy. Well, I guess he was a vampire. It was more like a thing for him. It
was a star vehicle for him.
My understanding was he wanted to be in it more because he's a big star.
Tom Cruise in a film, you use Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You don't dress him up in a mummy costume.
Right, that's true.
I want to say in general, I think big stars take away from horror films. when the people in it are unknown or not
Huge stars.
everyday knows, not
Yeah.
huge stars,
Mega.
superior aspect to them, and they seem more real. And
Right.
you know,
Sure.
as an actor, it takes you out of the film, and it's like it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I mean, I did like the idea of a female mummy that's really dangerous and threatening. Some ideas of it were kind of cool, but in general, it was, you could tell, like, written by committee. And
Well-
they were setting you up to be like this thing where Tom Cruise would be in all the movies, maybe, and like, it's,
From what I read, Tom Cruise had way too much control over this.
oh,
film.
really?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that always happens
Yeah.
with films. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so including like rewrites. And so that's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's bad.
They put more stuff in there for Tom Cruise to do, more lines,
Yes.
more dialogue, more scenes. And basically, what did it do, Sean? What did it do to this whole Dark Universe idea?
It tanked.
Tanked it, yeah.
Like, I mean, I think it did middling in the box office. It certainly didn't do enough to like warrant. It was so funny because there was a big promotional push.
Ad campaign.
They had this one photo. I don't know where it was, but like they had Russell Crowe, Johnny Depp, Tom Cruise, all these big stars posing
Yeah.
this photo to be like, these are going to be your stars and
Yeah.
all your Dark
We're all
Universe
signed.
movies.
They were all
Wow.
Of
signed.
course, a franchise.
Yeah, yeah. And,
Yeah,
so and that's the problem. Yeah, you can't start out. It's so pathetic. They're just like trying to copy the Marvel films just with monster characters. That's all
But
they
even
care
the Marvel films started out with a few successful Marvel films.
Yes, of course. Right.
Right.
They didn't know. I mean, yeah.
We've got this whole universe ready to go.
Right.
You're
right.
going to be Doctor Strange, and you're going to be this. No,
Right. No.
I don't think anyone knew that Iron Man was going to be the hit
No.
that it was.
no,
gonna
they
be.
didn't. And
Yeah.
also, yeah. So I
But
mean,
also, Iron Man was made by someone who loved Marvel Comics and understood
True.
Marvel
Oh,
Comics.
yes,
That
right,
was not
yeah.
the case with the Mummy.
Right.
You know, so
I
yeah,
think that's the case with a lot of films. It's like
yeah,
if you have somebody with the vision and they love what they're doing and they actually love the material,
right.
you're going to get a great
course.
film.
I
But I
mean,
think they tried doing that with cult films too, where you can't force a cult.
yeah, you can't make a cult film. You don't set out making a cult film.
No,
Yeah.
it just
Right.
has to happen.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to Brendan Fraser and Tom Cruise and all those guys, I will take the Universal 40 sequels any day.
Me too.
All of
Me
those.
too.
I have to
100%.
agree. I mean, that's any
Yeah.
day.
There was one that wasn't very good. It was actually an interesting idea, which was a found footage film called The Pyramid in 2014. Yeah. And it's
Wow.
basically it's like our amateur archaeologists stuck in a pyramid and chased and terrorized by a mummy type of thing. Sounded like a cool idea, but it didn't
No?
work. No, it was disappointing because I think it's a great idea. I mean, doing a found footage film inside a pyramid trap is cool.
But I think also that's kind of been played out so much, the found footage
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's that kind of thing where it just becomes it's lazy filmmaking after a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you're better off with just a better script and do it's like the fake documentary.
Yeah. If it's done right, it can be really well done. Well, Matt, I mean, I know one of your favorite movies too, from 2002, Bubba Hotep.
Oh my
Yes,
god.
yeah.
That's a different, very unique,
Very different type
unique,
of
fresh
mummy.
take on it.
That
Yeah.
was so original.
Talk about you should. So what's the premise of that one? Because I know you like.
Well,
that
when
one.
you've got Elvis, Elvis Presley is actually
Right.
in a
Old
retirement.
folks home.
Yeah.
Right.
He has switched places with an Elvis impersonator because he got tired of being Elvis and having all the pressure. So he decides, and by the way, Elvis is played by geniusly by Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
And it's one of his greatest roles. So he has switched places with this Elvis impersonator, but then he gets injured as the Elvis impersonator and winds up in this home. And so he has to be taken care of. And it's a really kind of a humiliating situation that he's in.
Right.
Meanwhile, he's friends with Ozzie Davis, the great Ozzie Davis, who believes he is John F. Kennedy.
Right.
And there's a point
Well,
where you
well,
even
well,
go like, maybe he is.
Yeah. That's the whole thing. So we don't know if he's not.
We're not
Right.
sure because he has an explanation of why he is
Right.
John F. Kennedy.
Kennedy's
Right.
brain was put into
Yes.
the dead body. The body had died, but they were able to save the brain.
Right.
Yes. So-
and if
So that's
not-
the
yeah.
backdrop. That's not even
that's
the
not
movie
weird
yet.
enough.
That's
right.
not even the movie yet. So, and I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head how the mummy gets to this area, but
Yeah, I
somehow
can't remember. But
this
yeah.
sarcophagus or something winds up near this home. And so this mummy is looking for food and it sucks the life force out of old people.
Right.
And so
Oh,
in the middle of the night, it's roaming the halls of this
Right.
facility, going into all, various rooms and sucking the life out of people. And Ozzie Davis is the only one who seems to be aware that this is happening.
Right.
And then Bruce Campbell gets a whiff of it, and then they become allies and battle this mummy. And it's great.
And it's funny. It's scary. It's
It's shot really well. Amazing performances.
Yeah.
And it's directed by Don Coscarelli, who, of course, did the Phantasm film.
Yeah, and there is
really well
definitely some Don Coscarelli touches
yes.
that you will recognize and enjoy.
It's a very entertaining film throughout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is a great. I mean, I think it's very entertaining for our generation. Just loving Bruce Campbell from the
Evil Dead. Yeah.
Evil Dead films and Kennedy, the whole conspiracy theories around Kennedy and was he sitting, on life support under the Pentagon for years or whatever it was, and it's a great little film, and also that idea of old people being
Forgotten.
Yes, right.
And that's why he's able to suck out their life force, and they would be dying anyway.
Right.
And that's such a great concept as well.
Yeah,
it all works. It works on every level. Is handled very well, and I love Ozzie Davis. His sincerity in that role, in making this ridiculous concept, believable.
But see, I argue that with comedies as well and horror films. You have to act it as the truth, or it doesn't work.
Sure.
And get a great actor like Ozzie Davis who makes it all believable, it just clicks. But when there's somebody who's given a wink,
who's winking,
camera,
right,
it ruins it. It's like, I know this is ridiculous material. No, you shouldn't.
Right.
It's truth for you when you're performing it. So,
we had a guest on the show not too long ago who was actually in Bubba Hotep. James?
Dan Schweiger.
That's right.
Dan Schweiger was in Bubba Hotep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah. Dan Roebuck is also in it too.
Here's the other thing about that film. We were talking earlier about flipping through the Mummy films. That's a film that as soon as you see it's on, I stop and I step.
Me too.
Sure.
There's much of it that I've seen more of, the middle part of the film.
Right.
You have either the opening or the end. It's like
right.
catching like right in that point. And but Bruce Campbell's whole Elvis thing is great, and the whole
the mummy is scary too. Mummy is a really cool mummy.
It's very unique.
Because the mummy's done straight. Yeah.
What's great about it is that it's real horror. There's real feeling of horror. But I've always argued that it should be really scary, like even the Ghost of Mr. Chicken.
Right.
They're terrifying as a kid, especially. There are moments of that are terrifying, and they don't do it in a bad manner. You have to make the scares real in the comedy horror genre, and Bubba Hotep does it, and so does Ghost of Mr. Chicken. Not so much Costello versus the Mummy, but
that's a different kind of thing.
Vic Mizzy's organ score.
Yeah.
Ghost of Mr. Chicken is terrifying. I think it's really spooky.
Yeah.
What about like the Mummy as in pop culture and in merchandise? Because I know there's like Larry, you know your Mummy toys pretty well, right?
It's so funny you should say that, Sean. I mean, we all know and love the famous Aurora Monster model kit.
Yes,
of the
great.
Mummy.
Yeah,
but that model kit is actually more of a Lon Chaney Jr. model.
Based on the Kharis. Right, exactly.
Exactly. It would have been cool if they did a more classic, a Karloff mummy. But, it's so funny. As a kid, I don't know about you guys growing up, when you got your monster toys, you always picked up Frankenstein. You always picked up the Wolfman. If the creature or Dracula was available, you picked them up. But the mummy was always, for me at least, the last monster I'd pick up. A famous set of rubber jigglers by Ben Cooper back in 1973 that I loved dearly. Of course, the very first one I picked up was the creature, then Frankenstein, Wolfman, and they didn't have the Dracula, but of course the last one they had with the Mummy. I'm like, oh, I guess I should get the Mummy. But the neat thing about the Mummy, though, is yes, he's all white, he's in his bandage and stuff, but I did like the slap of blood they would put on his hand, and his hand
Right.
kind of all like a shiny bright red.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Matt?
Yeah, and that's the thing with the Mummy, as opposed to the other monsters in the series. Like AHI did those Mummy figures,
Yeah, back
and
in
they did the whole
73,
monster
74.
set, but the
Yeah.
Mummy was the one that had just blood
Yeah.
splattered all over
Pretty
it.
extreme for a little
Yeah.
kid's toy back then.
Yeah.
Especially when you think of you as a kid, you're thinking, wait a minute, the Mummy is all dried up, so that's like somebody else's blood that he
Yes.
killed. He got all
Yeah.
over him.
Right.
It's like, wow.
There was
You know?
and then there was another Mummy figure made by Lincoln, which
Lincoln,
like
right.
that, and
Yeah.
that was like had blood all over
Yep.
it. And if you think about it, where the other monsters, like they actually had a hunchback, and he's wearing like this brown cloth. Well, you're not going to throw blood over that. But with the
Right.
Mummy,
It's like canvas. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
like you got to color, and it is covered. It's drenched in blood. Now, I
And
don't
it's the
have
only
that
one. None of the other monsters have
No.
blood all over them.
No,
Yeah.
you're right.
Which
you're
is
right.
weird, yeah. But
But
it's
I
cool. They must have thought, well, he's too plain looking, just all white.
We got to,
Make him
scare them
bloody.
up a
I
little
think
bit.
you have to have a thing where they go, you got to put some kind of color in it. It's just all.
Yeah.
and
Show
you know
up in our
the Mummy,
Yeah.
the Mummy was popular in the sense that they made the model, they made the rubber toys, they made the plastic toys. There's a shampoo, what they call Soaky, a Mummy Soaky. And what's cool about that figure, it actually has it. So what is a Soaky? It's like a bottle, and then you unscrew the head, and then you pour your
Shampoo,
out
right?
of it.
Yeah.
And the Mummy is cool because his head is kind of a light green where his body isn't, and it has a snake, like a cobra snake
Ooh.
on the bottom, and so it's really, really cool.
What about? So there's a set, and I have them, but I don't think they're original. I think they've done a number of molds of this, but there are these hard plastic monster figures. I've got them in my bathroom, and there's a Wolfman, and there's a Frankenstein monster, and Dracula, and there's a Mummy, and the Mummy looks like the Mummy from Abbott and Costello Meets the Mummy.
Oh yeah, right. I think
Yeah.
I used to have that figure.
He looks
Looks
more
like-
bandaged.
Looks like
Those-
Clarice.
Yeah, those came out in the 60s, and the molds have been they've been used, but still those are great plastic figures.
They're fun,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as far as toys, like I as we've talked about a lot, is the Mego Mad Monster series from the 70s.
Mhm.
I really liked. They
Love
were
that
all
Mummy.
very, very unique takes on. They didn't look like their classic Universal monsters, but they were unique takes on them. And the Mummy was cool because it had an exposed face, withered, and pale ghoulish with like the glow in the dark eyes.
Scary
It was a really
face.
cool Mummy. And the most recent Mummy figure that the new Mego put out, I really like too. So it's like they make good action figures too.
They're action figures, but there's not that much to do with them.
Well,
Move them very slowly.
You can put blood on them.
They're action figures that don't need action.
Non-action figures.
Well, I mean, we've mentioned this before. What's so neat is that Mego is back, and they're looking at all these other really cool things. And like Sean said, Sean, I actually wasn't interested in the Mummy until you brought up. You said, Larry, you should look at that.
Yeah, it looks
I
cool.
think it's really cool. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I mean, this is the golden age of toy collecting.
Yeah.
Yes,
big time.
And as we know,
unfortunately,
now what I did, what I did mention earlier on is with the Aurora monster models, how when those came out in the early 60s, that was the Lon Chaney Jr. version, but it took Sideshow Toys back in 1999 to make the absolutely perfect, beautiful Boris Karloff Mummy.
Oh no, all that stuff. Yeah.
And the original, the 8.5-inch figures were so beautiful. Then they went on to make the 12-inch figures.
Didn't they do London After Midnight and some of them?
Dave, they did London After Midnight. They did Phantom of the Opera.
Creature, Mole People.
They even did Karloff Mummy, not in the Mummy outfit, in his Artist.
Oh yeah, the Fez hat.
That
is cool. Yeah,
I mean,
that's one of my favorite figures.
And they're more like collectibles than toys, but if you want to take them out of your package and.
Because visually they're great as toys. They look really cool.
I would even say now it's not in the same league as Sideshow, but Hasbro did a series of 1/6 figures
That's
around
right.
that time, and their mummy ones actually came out pretty nicely. And they were, if you were on a budget, that was the way to go. And they even
Right.
did a Son of Dracula,
And there are
the
other
only
things.
Son of Dracula, I think.
Right.
You don't have G.I. Joe run into any other 12-inch figures. So
Well, now he
G.I.
can.
Joe could be
Yeah.
in Transylvania, fighting the Nazis, and then Dracula shows up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's true. Now, Matt, I know you're a fan of the Marvel monsters like
The Living Mummy.
Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night. I know the worst, The Living Mummy. I never really got into that particular comic. This is like early 70s Marvel comic character? Did he have his own series? Or was he always guest starring in other comics?
No, he had his own. It was part of I think they called it supernatural thrillers.
Okay.
And then, so in case they ran out of mummy stories, which I'm sure they thought they would,
yeah,
they could throw another creature or something in there.
So it's Nikantu,
the living mummy.
Yeah, it looked cool.
He was great. And what was interesting about him was that he wound up in the regular Marvel universe.
Really?
So you've got the mummy now, teaming up with Ben Grimm.
Really?
Nick Fury. And
so the other Marvel monsters didn't do that?
No, they did. They did. But to me, the thing that's funny to me is that a mummy of all.
Yeah, right.
I kind of can understand a werewolf, because the werewolf has the other personality. He turns back to Werewolf by Night. It was Jack Russell. Huh? So he had an alter ego, so that kind of fits the comic book world. And then Dracula is just your classic villain. And you also had Morbius the Living Vampire.
Right.
The Frankenstein monster that they did for Marvel Comics, I don't think that ever, as far as I know, I don't remember that being with anybody else. But
there's also something very interesting about all those Universal monsters of the 40s, is that at one time they were all human beings. At one point,
from the 40s at least, yeah.
I'm saying the classic Universal.
Yeah.
Don't have a Godzilla.
Or the creature was the first one, I guess. Yeah, that was. But you're right, Dracula.
But all those in the 40, the initial run, they're all former humans, and I think so much of that had to do with the fact that those early filmmakers, or those filmmakers, had all survived World War I. I know that was James Whale's big thing, is that, and they'd seen the kind of gore and the monsters that men became after they'd seen action.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
The idea of all those false faces and stuff that they had to
right.
So a lot of that stuff, the scarring on Frankenstein, but the fact that they were all human at one point and became the monster.
Right. That's interesting.
Kind of interesting,
I would say of those early monsters, it's a little bit of a tangent here, but they all have a certain amount of sympathy to them. But I would say Dracula has probably the least for me, whereas the Frankenstein monster has the most. And then next in line would be, say, Larry Talbot.
Yeah,
sure.
And then, the mummy, there's the love story. So you kind of feel some, but you never really get the true story of who Dracula was. And if we're going by what we've been told over the years, he used to be Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah.
Right.
Or he certainly was a pretty bad guy for a very long time.
Yeah, not the most sympathetic character.
No.
No, but it's also a love story, though, as well. I mean, it's
true.
And if you go to Bram Stoker's version more. But there was also the whole staging of Dracula, and it was more the idea that he was taking women by force, that it was
right.
There were so many connotations with Dracula that aren't in any of the other monsters either.
Right.
The seduction element.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and I guess the Dracula character changed from, the novel to how many different incarnations of that stage play that they did. Because with each version, they tweaked the story a little bit.
Right.
Was there ever a mummy stage play?
No.
Nope.
I wonder if that,
we should write one.
Yeah.
Somebody should do
all music, all mummies.
Yeah.
But there was a mummy costume though. You know,
Oh,
there
yeah.
were a couple of them. Collegeville made, this was back in the 80s, made a really cool one because it's the one that actually has like blood coming out of its eye.
Ooh.
It's
Cool.
like, I mean, for a kid, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It
How about the costume part?
Well, this
It
is where
say
it
the
all-
mummy on it.
Yes,
The mummy.
It did, because you need to
Hi,
identify.
I'm the
which-
mummy.
Yes, exactly.
The Ben Cooper, I'm
Yeah,
a
the
big
Ben
fan
Cooper,
of mummies.
Well, it's but actually the actual picture on the chest was actually pretty neat. You know, because it
That
actually
helps.
showed the mummy
Right.
with his
That's
hands
neat.
out, and it
And then you
and
just
it
have
had blood on it. And
Side of the back.
it wasn't just like a
Yes.
face of the mummy. You know, it was. Yeah.
So when like a little kid came to your door, Larry, trick or treating as the mummy, did you just give him dried tanna leaves?
No. Well, the funny
I put a
thing is,
spear through them.
I was trying to think the costume. I didn't see till much later when I was an adult. I never even saw it, and I remember thinking to myself, who would dress up as the mummy as a kid? Again, with all the monsters out there, with all the superhero costumes, and
Blood.
stuff you could get as a kid.
Yeah.
Bloody
who's
scary.
that kid who goes, I want to be the mummy.
Hold on.
But I think the Aurora mummy is one of the hardest ones to find as well. It's one of the more rare ones because there weren't as many
Of the model kit?
of the model kit. I think
Larry?
you
I don't know.
can find them now.
No,
That's the one that doesn't exist as much. It was all glow in the dark.
No. This
Right.
is what you're talking about is when the models went to their second phase from the 60s into the 70s. They added the frightening lightning. That was the glow in the dark stuff.
Right.
And that's the one that I had. And actually, the mummy, it is not like the least favorite. It's the most popular ones, really, believe it or not. It's like the King Kong and Godzilla. Those are the difficult ones to find, and those are the
Really?
ones that are always selling big bucks.
Interesting.
How about, I would think that the least popular would be like the Hunchback.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
A Hunchback
I can
is
see
the
that.
least.
But I had the Hunchback. I love.
Yeah, I
have it
had
now.
all of them.
Yeah.
What was great about the Hunchback is it had the whole scene,
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
much like the Jekyll and Hyde later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's a great
the,
one.
but the mummy had that great base with all like the Egyptian ruins and the
oh,
hieroglyphics,
so
really
good.
detailed.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
cobra coming around
Yeah.
the corner, like
Yep.
that was really cool.
Yeah,
and
really
and the sideshow kind of recreated that a little bit with their Karloff
Exactly.
action figure. That has
those
that
are
cool
beautiful.
base.
Yeah, the
Beautiful.
smaller ones, the
Yeah,
amount of
they're so
detail on
good.
those characters, so great. But the definitive mummy, the true mummy, the mummy that reigns over all, has to be Yummy Mummy.
Delicious for sure.
Right.
And for Matt, for people who don't know, who is Yummy Mummy?
So Yummy Mummy, now I think most of the people who listen to this show will have heard of the monster cereals like Frankenberry,
By
Count
General Mills.
Chocula, Boo Berry.
Right.
Well, they
Don't
tried.
forget Fruit Brute.
Oh, well, see, well, that was the thing, is it those original three cereals were pretty damn popular.
Yes.
Yes.
By the time you got to Fruit Brute, I think we were starting to run out of gas a little bit here, you know? And so Fruit Brute was a werewolf who dressed like Doug Henning for the most part. I think it lasted for about a year or so. It was on the market, and then they pulled that one. But then they came out with this cereal, Yummy Mummy, and the original flavor, I believe,
Yeah.
was vanilla
Yes, the marshmallows.
with marshmallows. Yes, correct.
Vanilla marshmallows, right. It was like fruity cereal and vanilla marshmallows.
It never sounded tasty to me. I'm always thinking like, Yummy Mummy. Ew, I'm like eating dried.
But let me say
Okay.
now that Yummy Mummy, it sounds in the porn industry that'd be very popular. I think it'd be the
Well, it's a
That
term.
would be Dave. That would be my porn name if
Yummy
and
Mummy.
I haven't ruled it out. A porn career.
But isn't
It's
it like
always
a
there.
term? Isn't a modern day term now used to describe like attractive moms? I thought it was. It's like a saying that people use.
It is, yes. You
Yeah,
got me.
yeah. But
Absolutely.
back in the day,
There's a
it was
show,
just,
right?
It just
Isn't there
meant
like
is
a
there?
reality show?
Oh, I don't know.
There
Yeah.
may have been, but I'm sure there's a porn called Yummy
I'm
Mummy.
sure.
Oh,
But actually, the cereal's pretty good. I thought. But they put them out every Halloween. They put
Okay.
out new
It's-
ones.
But
It's-
Sean, have you no? Have
What?
you
How can
seen
you
Yummy
not?
Mummy come out lately? Because I've seen them.
Yes, I have a box of it now.
I've never tried it.
I haven't seen it, Sean.
No, okay. The difference now is it's orange cream flavored marshmallows.
Oh,
That's
Oh.
like a creamsicle.
That sounds
Like a creamsicle.
good.
That
It's
sounds like-
good. It's
I like
it's
that orange
sugar-filled
flavor.
cereal. How could you not like it?
orange cream?
Yes,
I
it's
love
delicious.
orange cream. You know,
It's
that's like
delicious.
popsicles.
The creamsicle
Dave?
or dreamsicle.
Creamsicle.
Yeah, like it's like a
It
creamsicle.
tastes like a
taste.
creamsicle.
The marshmallows are like creamsicle. At least that's what I remember. Yeah.
But you
Oh,
want
I-
a cream. You want, see, look, certain things belong in their own world. A creamsicle is beautiful in its
Yeah.
own
Yeah, it is.
world.
That's true.
But then you try to take a creamsicle and you put it on cereal, and now
Okay,
now you
let's-
now you got an abomination.
What about Orange Julius?
I like it
That's
orange.
better.
Okay,
That's better because
combination-
we're still adjacent to orange juice.
All right. Okay, you're not going to be straight on that. You know what? Some people
Well,
got to cut the ties. You try to give a good argument, and they can't even listen to it.
you were talking about like giving, like they were running out of ideas. I'm trying to think of like other monster cereals they could have done.
Well,
Yeah.
as we know, what was it? Robot Chicken did that whole skit of creature with the black macaroons.
Oh
And he gets
yeah,
so
yeah.
upset. He's watching TV and he goes, Frankenstein's got a cereal? And then you see Blueberry, goes, Blueberry? Who's Blueberry? And the creature gets pissed off. And so he tries to sell the cereal company his idea. They won't go for it.
That's
So
great.
either he takes out a loan to make his own cereal, and he's trying to give out samples to people. He goes,
That's
Not
great.
he goes, hey, creature from the black with a black.
They should have made
macaroon."
like a Rondo Hatton cereal.
What
like-
would that have been?
I don't know,
tasted
like raspberry rondos or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like,
Or just rondos. I know there was a drink
Rondos.
rondo. I know
yeah,
that.
like Ron-O's rondos.
Yeah.
But
Right.
That should be a pasta thing, like
See,
Chef
if you
Boyardee
go-
rondos.
If you go
Yeah.
to the monsters, I mean, how can you hunchback humps? You can't.
Yeah. Munchback.
Or
There you go.
Oh,
Nice.
Okay.
Munchback from the Munchback from Notre Dame.
Hey,
Or-
how about
or-
creature from the black pudding?
Or how about
Ooh.
Phantom Flakes?
English market.
And Phantom Flakes. I like that.
Phantom Flakes.
Yeah.
Godzilla granola.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
King Kong crisps.
Super sugar centipedes. And we could go on, but we won't.
Dave, thank you so much for being with us and bringing so much warmth to the mummy. I really appreciate it.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys about horror, and thank you for having me.
That's
I-
right.
We
the time
promise to
zone
only
for
put you through this,
it's-
once, twice a year.
That's
Well,
right.
All
Okay,
good. I loved it. I'd love to do it again. Thanks for having me, guys. Bye.
Good to see you again.
Bye,
Dave.
Dave.
All right, man.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Time for a listener shout out.
Shout
Shout out.
out.
This goes out to several listeners who recently purchased our new exciting glow in the dark Monster Party logo t-shirt.
Oh my
Hey.
God. Wow.
Yeah. Among them are Timothy Roach from North Royalton, Ohio,
Oh, that's
Right.
going to look good on him.
Colin Langendorfer from Mokina, Illinois,
Of
Oh,
course.
Colin was the animal wrangler guy that I met at Monster Palooza.
That's
No.
right. I knew that
No.
name sounded familiar.
Yeah. All right, Colin.
Now we can
Cool.
find him easily in a crowd because he has a glow in the dark shirt.
Cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to get mine.
Yeah, right.
It's in the mail. That's a lie.
Doug Busek from Torrance, California.
Hey,
All
Doug.
right, Doug.
Thank you.
Josh Mitchell from DeSoto, Kansas.
Aw,
Cool.
family member.
Jacob Becher from Tucson, Arizona, who also bought a cap.
Right, Jacob.
It's a high quality cap, Jacob.
That's right.
And David Moran from Livonia, Michigan, who also purchased a cap. And David is also a Patreon member.
Way to go, David.
David, you're gonna love that cap. Wear it
Yep.
proudly, sir.
Oh, big time.
Thank you, all of you, for your support. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And enjoy those shirts.
Yes, yes. And if you're listening, we have more. We still have a lot of sizes. T-shirts and caps are $20 a piece. And if you are a Patreon member, and by the way, we have a new Patreon member.
We
Cool.
do?
Yes. And that person is longtime listener Jay Gunn.
Jay Gunn.
Welcome aboard.
Jay, you're going to love the new stuff.
You are going to
Love it.
love Patreon, the world we're creating. It gets better all the time. And one of the perks that you're going to get is that if you are a Patreon member and you buy a t-shirt, we will give you some extra goodies, some treasures,
Some
free stuff donated by Jason Lindsay and Biff Bang Pow Toys. And it'll be a surprise. And you'll get a little extra. You'll get your t-shirt. Right now, we're doing a promotion. It's still free shipping, but we don't know how much longer that's going to last because at some point, we need to make like 3 or 4 cents on these things. We've got to keep this ship afloat. So, but right now, it's free shipping. So take advantage of it. Get a t-shirt, get a cap, and join Patreon. Patreon, I'm telling you, it's $5 a month. $5. You get bonus audio. You get bonus video. We're coming up with new ideas for this thing all the time. You know, we just saw a nice little documentary of Shawn Sheridan's wonderful kaiju toy collection. That's a Patreon-only thing.
Yes.
So get in on this. $5, Larry.
I mean, I spend more on M&Ms every month. Come on.
And you love M&Ms.
I do. But I would love this even more. $5 is nothing.
Nothing. So do it and just feel better about everything that you're doing. All the good decisions you're making in life. This is just one more.
That's right.
And joining Patreon is easy to do. All you got to do is just go to patreon.com, find Monster Party, click on the join button, follow the instructions. You're there.
Nice. And hey, let's remind our listeners that you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Monster Party TV. Our Twitter handle is at Monster Party HQ. Instagram, also Monster Party HQ. On whatever platform you're listening to us, please take a moment and write a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we will read it on the air.
Yep. Oh, yes, indeed you do. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
Watch mummy movies.
And eat yummy mummy cereal.
Now with marshmallow TANNA leaves.
It's sarcophagously delicious. Hey, Dave. Long time no see.
This is Shawn Sheridan. He's our resident mummy.
How's it going, man?
I tell you,
I like your shirt.
Thank you.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Hey, we're all representing. We got to get you a glow-in-the-dark one. We got glow-in-the-dark ones now.
I'll send you my address. You can send it with your Christmas card.
You got it.
I picked mummies from the ones that you offered up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. We wanted to do a mummy one for a long time. Yeah.
Never done
good.
mummies.
We've mentioned mummies, but not exclusively, just on.
Yeah, mummies are one of the weakest of the.
Some say,
but
many say.
I love the mummy.
I love the mummy. And you know what? And I tell you, it's almost like from 32, that was like the peak.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of went like that. Although I think that Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy brings it up a little bit.
Yeah, although that's not exactly a laughed riot, that one.
I'll tell you,
Mexican mummy films, the wrestling women versus the Aztec Mummy.
The Aztec Mummy. That brings it to a whole new level. Especially,
this is so great. This is so great for the show.
Mummies. They didn't have mummies. There are mummies mummified in the Andes. When they put people in the elements, they would mummify naturally. But they didn't wrap there weren't mummies in the pyramids in the Mayan and Aztec world.
Right. There's sacrifices,
they picked up on the idea. We've got pyramids too.
But this is important information that might be offered on our show.
Oh yeah, hey, I'm all for it. And the Hammer mummy films.
There are
Which I
actually
think
many
is-
films. If
Yeah,
doing
which are my
research again on
favorite.
this, there's
Yeah.
a lot of mummy
There's a
stuff.
lot of
And we'll get to Yummy Mummy at some point, I'm sure.
Of course.
Mummies. Is that the Mummy's Curse with the hand, where it's the mummy?
That's the blood from the mummy's tomb.
Blood
That's
from the
the-
Blood from the
which
Mummy's
is the
tomb.
best
It's like
after
super
the
hot.
original Christopher Lee mummy. That's my favorite Hammer mummy film.
yeah.
Which
my
doesn't
favorite.
really have a
film.
mummy in it.
It's a reincarnation.
Right
It's
back. Yeah,
Jewel
right
of the
back.
7 Stars. Yeah.
Some of
Yeah.
these don't even have real necessary. The Wheeler and Woolsey film, Mummies
Yeah.
Boys,
Mummy's Boys. Yeah.
Yes.
there's no actual mummy. But that's
That's
okay.
true.
It's
Yeah.
in the title. Fuck it. We're
Yeah,
doing
they got a
it.
tomb,
Well, and
they got a
also-
sarcophagus.
The later ones where Lon Chaney Jr. is playing them, they never quite work because he's kind of big. Like he's full. There's no
Yeah, but he's the
Particularly
first.
like a Karloff mummy.
You can't stop
Is it-
him though. You can't
he
stop
looks-
him though.
but he looks desiccated. He looks like he's
Yes.
got no liquid in him, that he's
Yeah.
mummified. And when Lon Chaney Jr. is just kind of like, we'll shove the makeup on him. And
They
put
give him a
the-
mask, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. It was
It's
like
a combination mask for the long shots and then makeup and the
and
close
also
shots.
the crazy mummy suits they developed where they're like almost zip up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really obvious in Abbott Costello.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
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 Those movies are perfect for Lon Chaney Jr. because it's
Yeah.
almost like, here, put on this suit and just go through your day and
Right.
forget
And
about the
you don't have to
camera.
move that much.
Yeah.
You don't have to move.
But we
Just
should
shuffle
say-
around,
Yeah.
occasionally get violent with someone, and we'll
It's
just
almost the
film
same
it.
argument with the slow zombie. Like
Yeah.
the idea of mummies. And I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the very popular Mummy franchise from the '90s into the 2000s.
I
We'll
agree
get
with
to
you
this.
there.
We'll
Yeah,
get
let's
to
save
this.
all this for the show.
Yeah.
Well, I'll rehash.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of going through.
You're just, you're just
You're warming
workshopping
up.
right now.
You know
Yeah.
what I would love to do with you guys is the anthology horror films. I don't know if you've covered.
oh, yeah,
that.
no,
we did, but we could
do another
revisit
round.
that probably.
We should
Sure.
do another round.
I watched one of those the other day that was on Amazon Prime.
Which one?
I can't remember which one it was.
An older one or like a
Tell me-
It's one of
tell
the
us a
70s
story.
ones, that there were so many of them.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
The English did. The English did like I got to say at least 6.
Yeah.
more than that. More than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between
And then some of
Amicus
them
and
have
Hammer.
such great scenes in them that were so embedded as a child when
Yeah.
I watched them, like the razor blades with the.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Yeah.
Tales from the Crypt is my
Yeah.
favorite
Yeah.
one because that has I think the most
Also, it's got the
solid
best production
stories.
values, and it has a Doctor Who.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's right. That's right.
And Joan Collins with the Christmas.
It
and-
has the real Doctor Who in it.
Yeah. That's right. Tom Baker.
No,
I
wait a
might have
minute.
a
No,
cocktail.
that's
Vault of
Vault of
Horror.
Horror.
As
That
the,
is
as,
yes,
as the painter.
yeah.
He's the painter.
He's
yeah.
the painter who has the painting that, he doesn't
Right.
want to mess with the paint. It's a little take on the Dorian Gray thing.
Yeah.
I like
yeah.
when he puts it in the safe
Right,
and
he put it in the
can't
safe.
breathe.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
That's
That's
great.
fun.
It's a great touch.
Those movies are wonderful, though. I mean, I would have to say that I can't think of one that I didn't like. There are ones that I
Yeah.
like more
Well, there's
than
always
others.
been the great thing about it was like there's a Terry Thomas is one in one with
Yeah, where
Yeah.
he's the neat freak.
yes, and the white
Everything has its place and there's a place for everything.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And she cuts it and
Glynis,
puts it in
Glynis
those little
Johns
jars.
is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this put
Glynis
upon
Johns,
wife.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love
But
I
anyway,
love
I'd love
that.
to do one of those because I just
Let's do it.
find
Yeah.
that
We should do that
Right.
again.
every one of them is worth watching. There might be a bad segment that or one that you're not into
like,
that much,
yeah.
but it's followed by another one almost immediately.
Right.
And so many of them are them in the waiting room to hell.
Yeah.
It's like that's.
Did
that's
you
the premise.
watch
And we actually I wanted to write one of those.
Did you
and
watch
maybe-
Steve
yeah.
Coogan's thing, the Dr. Horrible's House of Horrible?
No.
So
But that
that was
sounds
Steve
great.
Coogan's take on the anthology.
Amicus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Amicus. And there's one where they do it.
I've been wanting to do one of those forever. We wanted
You
to
should
do
watch
like
it. Yeah.
a sketch version where it was all sketch comedians
Yeah.
doing.
We wanted to do a Monster Party movie where we were doing the podcast
live from a mansion, a haunted mansion.
Yeah, or just our studio, and we're telling, and the topic is
think,
dreams, bad dreams, and so we.
I think that you guys are driving to the mansion. It's really stormy out there. You get to the mansion, you tell the stories, and then it turns out you all died in a car accident right outside the front door.
Sure. I don't care how we get there, as long as
right out on our way to Comic-Con.
Yeah, there you go.
Driving down to San Diego to Comic-Con.
We don't know we're dead. We think we're still going to a convention.
Yeah. We still think
we go to the convention of the damned.
We're stuck in Oceanside.
If you're gonna make a low budget horror movie, an anthology is perfect because then you can just make these little short films and just string them together with a framing device.
What's great about them too is they don't have to have the best endings as long as they tie in with the.
As long as they tie in.
Yeah.
And no one really minds you ending up in hell. You can. That's a good tried and true.
Well, that's what we thought. It was just the idea we wanted, and Monty Python does it in The Meaning of Life. Do you remember when you have death come in and they go around the dinner table?
The salmon moose.
Yeah, and it turns out that I didn't have this. None of them ate it. So they
and
salmon. I didn't have the salmon.
And that's more Dead of Night, right? That kind of feel.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
But all those people end up in heaven, by the way. Remember, it's Christmas. And
that's true.
Yeah. That's a nice twist.
Which really doesn't make sense.
All right, guys. So do you want to?
It is a film. It is fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get a cocktail.
Go get a cocktail.
Absolutely.
Does anybody want anything?
I like some crisps.
All right. I'll get some crisps.
Okay.
James, allow me to compliment you on your beautiful background.
I know. Isn't that nice?
Makes me so happy.
Did you move again?
Yes, I've moved to a sarcophagus.
There you go.
These were printed 3 years ago before I left Playboy.
Wow.
I've had these things in storage. I have a whole slew of these beautiful, like 12 by 14 or whatever mummy posters.
Keep them in good shape. You never know when we'll use them again.
You're gonna have to give us a list of what other posters you have so we can go. Oh, we should do that topic.
We'll do that topic, right? Yes, yeah.
Killer plants, jungle, grim reapers, cats and dogs,
horror porn. We could do that.
We should do
that. That'd be for a limited audience, though.
A limited audience. What?
It would be.
Why don't you put on a dress, Sheridan?
The kids, Matt. The kids. You know?
What kids?
Think of the children.
Matt Dakota's kid.
He's listening right now.
He's not actually listening, is he?
And if he does, then he has a father that is carefully guiding him through this evil podcast.
Is this live?
No.
Oh, it certainly is not.
Okay.
Do you remember the last one you were on, Dave?
Was it Ghosts?
That was the first one.
That was the first one.
Yeah.
I think it was Horror Obscura.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Where you did the what was the ape movie?
We had
Talking Chimp movie.
No.
Yeah.
What's that one?
The Monkey Talks.
The Monkey Talks. I still have to see that.
Yeah.
I've got it on this. Ken Daly's got it. And
I might have to hit him up.
You can ask him because
we're still close.
It's great.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
So good. Yeah.
Who else loves chimps? Is Matta. John Matta. He loves chimps.
Oh, Matta loves chimps. So does Dana.
Dana loves.
Oh,
chimps.
There aren't many
Mr.
who don't
Chimp.
love chimps. Really,
that's true.
Why
I
get in the business?
like simians across the board.
Yes.
I like that little whatever that kind of monkey is, the spider monkey thing that you always see in like a Little Rascals cartoon.
Yeah, or like
that they bring to a party for some reason
monkey.
at the rich person's party. There's a monkey.
Yeah.
Well, I worked with Crystal, who's one of the top capuchin monkeys.
Capuchin.
Really?
Yeah, the capuchin is like named after the Capuchin monks because they have a little spot on their head.
Oh, when did this happen?
And they serve cappuccinos.
Malcolm in the Middle.
Is that right?
Malcolm in the Middle. I fell off the roof, but they changed it to something. But anyway, I was in a body cast and had a monkey butler, and the guy abused it so much.
I vaguely remember this.
Yeah, I abused it so much that it turns on me, and eventually.
So it's monkey shines. That's great.
Yeah, that's funny.
Monkey with a knife.
Oh, that's funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I got to go back and watch that whole. That is really one of the greatest comedies. Like I'm telling you, everybody is funny in that thing.
Well, they let everybody be funny, and also it had Linwood Boomer had his vision of what the show is, and it's kind of an auteur show.
Imagine if that could happen.
Everyone can relate to it. No one has the perfect TV family. That's like, in a weird way, I could really relate as a kid to Leave It to Beaver, because they would actually tell stories. Writers would bring home stories of their kids or stuff that happened to them as kids, and much more realistic than,
the Brady
Family,
Bunch
or any of those shows where they try to be too serious. Or,
Family
those kind of things where I just, the stuff you remember is the goofy stuff. Like Leave It to Beaver had a great episode where Beaver accidentally lets the car drift down the driveway into the street.
Yeah.
And he's so terrified. And it's like, that's what I remember from childhood. That kind of stuff happening, and then being terrified for your dad coming home.
Remember the monster shirt one?
One of my favorites, and Ken Daly had never seen it. And he was wearing the shirt that reminded me of that monster shirt. The monster shirt is a classic.
Yeah.
And you can actually get reproductions of that shirt now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
I got to find this.
shirt.
I got to find this.
Yeah.
I think I want one of those. All right. Shall we mummy on?
Maybe for the next Monster Party shirt.
Good idea.
Yeah.
We're looking for a new kind of. We have my buddy Derek Robertson, my brother-in-law. He did a mascot for us. It's cool. It's like a two-headed guy, but
I've ripped it off a couple times. Is the Tales from the Crypt AC?
That is a good idea. Yeah,
because what's great about it is you can have all of you on that, and then have little vignettes, like in the little cartoons,
like in the boxes. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
I've stolen for a couple things. We did the radio show you did.
That's right. Yes.
Doctor Strange, or with the Strange Doctor Bird, and then on Higgins Boys and Gruber for one of our shows, we did that. We stole that poster. And it was Tales of the Higgins Boys and Gruber.
Always works. Well, Tales of
that was actually we actually did that. We did an anthology one where it was this dagger. This guy wants to have this dagger, and it ends up killing him because he backs into it as he's reading on the page that he's going to die, like when he gets inflation. And it's like we Tales of the Higgins Boys Gruber, which I think I have it somewhere, or it's on YouTube. But
I'll find this. We'll look it up. All right, guys, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, and we're calling this Mummies.
Mummies, right?
Yeah, just Mummies.
I like Mummies.
Mummy movies. Yeah, just Mummies. Yeah,
I like Mummies because we did zombies, we did ghosts, we did. I feel like this should go in that category.
I think you got that. Yeah, Mummies will
bring the people
let
in.
People know.
Yeah. What is this about? It's about mummies. Okay.
Those mad, marvelous mummies.
Oh my God. Those marvelous mummies and their mumbling
magical flying machines
and magical sarcophagus.
How did Tony Curtis get in this? Okay. All right. Why don't we do this? Greetings, everyone. Excuse me.
We use that book in Tales of the Higgins Boys of Gruber. We actually were able to use the set from HBO's,
the Crypt Keeper?
And so we had a Crypt Keeper type puppet, and we had it open the thing. And
I gotta find this. We gotta find this.
We're doing a lot of puns.
Of course.
Puns, James.
Puns.
Hey.
All right. Take two. Greetings, everyone. And welcome to a very scary pyramid scheme edition of, see what I did?
I saw that.
Monster Party.
Monster Party.
Ooh. Do mummies make a sound?
They can. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
I thought they usually don't.
All right.
But when they're the other guy, when they get to become Arca or whatever, then they.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know it is. And who are you, sir?
I am Matt Weinhold.
David Anthony Higgins.
Let's start this again.
Yes, let's do that.
We're going to bring you
We're
in
gonna
later,
bring you in.
Dave.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So I'll
That's
just
good, Matt, because I think you blocked out. You kind of blanked out when you said monster party. So just for a second, it sounded like. So it's good you're redoing it.
Yeah. Redo it.
from the very beginning.
Bring me in later. I'm going to try to be quiet.
You want me to do this from the very beginning?
Yes,
Okay.
I think so.
All right. Here we go.
I think you should.
And if you guys could just pretend that it was as hilarious as it was the first time.
Yes,
appreciate
I'll
that.
laugh.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you don't need
It'll
it.
be
You don't
good.
need to tip us
Thank
off.
you, thank
just,
you.
Just
Okay.
write it. Write it
Okay.
out. Yes.
Here we go. Ready? Hold on one second.
I think I'm going to turn into a mummy before the time this starts.
Oh, Sean, you're awesome.
All right. That had to shut up my wife.
Oh, that's what that was. That insect sound in the back.
Yeah. You don't have to get me started on that. But what a beautiful. She's like a butterfly.
Yes, love her dearly. Love her dearly.
Good stuff. And we lost David. Okay.
Yeah, he's left.
All right.
Tonight's episode.
Restrooms.
Restrooms.
Yeah.
Peeing. We could do horror pee.
No.
Horror excrement.
There's a movie I've never seen. I'm really curious called Monstered.
Yes.
There's a
No.
like from the 80s. There's
Wait,
a movie
what-
called that.
Wow.
Wasn't someone told us about that too?
Yeah, I still have to see it.
Was it
We're
Ben
gonna see it.
Robertson? No,
But
it was Adam Holtz. Was it Adam
wasn't
Holtz?
wasn't
Really?
it shitty?
Probably.
Was it shitty?
Oh. Save it, James. Save it.
Too easy. Too easy.
All right. No, you're better than this, James. Come on.
I know. It's low hanging fruit.
All right. Let's start this, please.
Serious.
Yeah, let's do a quick lightning round. Just really quick. Like throw out a couple.
I don't have any more. Oh, except Doctor Who Pyramids of Mars with the robot mummies.
I don't have any
Okay.
more. I
Well,
don't
I
have
think-
any good cereals.
Okay. Well, I got one of the greatest cinematic mummies ever. That would be King Rootin' Tootin' from the classic Three Stooges short, We Want Our Mummy.
Oh,
Very good.
How can
Yeah.
you not know that one? There's a couple.
There you
There's Fred Olin Ray made one in the 80s called The Tomb. Had Michelle Bauer as a hot, evil Egyptian mummy.
Okay.
You had a weird TV movie made in 1980 called The Curse of King Tut's Tomb. Eva Marie Saint, Raymond Burr, and Tom Baker. And it was
Wow.
not very good.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's our lightning round.
Yeah. Go.
I want to just go out of my way to thank all of you guys for being willing. I'm so glad he wanted to do the mummy because, the fact that
We had to do the mummy.
we gave the mummy his due.
Yeah.
And-
it's
and,
that middle
you know-
ground character that like you want to
I
do
had
it.
more
still.
fun. I had more fun with it than I thought I was going to have.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah.
James,
I think
James, how about you?
What about me?
Did you have?
what about James? I
Are
mean,
you
come
frozen
on.
again?
What else is there to say about James?
What else is there to say about the mummy?
James, we just did a show called The Mummy. Look behind you.
How was it? How'd it go?
It was good.
It was
Awesome.
good. You were awesome.
Oh,
You're so
awesome.
smooth. Like butter. Okay, now that it's you and me, what the fuck is up with Sean? So, let's see. Keep America strong. Watch mummy movies if you have to.
Well, that Sean might be offended by that. I'm
No, that's
Watch
a bit,
mummy
for sure.
movies in the afternoon.
no.
No, we should make some kind of play on words with like something like sarcophagus or Aztec.
Oh, I want to hear your sarcophagus wordplay.
Because
go.
start-
No. No. Sean's got an idea.
No, I don't know. Watch mummy movies.
It's sarcophagus.
Sarcophilicious.
You'll
Oh,
have
how about just watch mummy movies? They're yummy. Or watch mummy movies or beware the curse of Amun-Ra, something like that. Or
Wait a minute, hold on.
oh no, something with Tanna leaves. So brew up some tanna leaves and enjoy mummy movies. Something like that. Enjoy mummy movies with a good hot cup of tanna leaves.
You'll
How about
a sarcophagus good time.
Oh, there you go.
I should never have brought that up.
I just the delivery and the commitment is enough for me. Like,
Tanna leaves.
beautiful, Larry. How about, what if we said, watch mummy movies and eat yummy mummy cereal now with marshmallow tanna leaves.
With tanna leaf flavored marshmallows. Something like that.
Maybe you should say that.
Or no, with
part,
marshmallow
Sean.
or with tanna leaf.
No, because I'm trying, because ending on marshmallows kind of sounds, but is that kind of clunky word?
Now with marshmallows.
Marshmallow tanna leaves.
Marshmallow tanna leaves. Yeah, now with eat yummy mummy. Now with marshmallow tanna leaves. Yeah, I like that. That works.
They're magically delicious.
No, you
no,
can't.
I know,
that.
you can't do that.
That's for our leprechaun episode.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
They're
could do
they're
that.
sarcophagically delicious.
Hey.
Okay, we could do that. So watch my movies and eat yummy mummy. Now, and we shall each say a different thing. So like I'll say now with marshmallow tanna leaves, and like James can say they're sarcophagus. Somebody else
Can
should
you say that?
We each should
They're-
say something.
They're
You said-
sarcophagically delicious.
Yeah, that's good.
Nice.
So like watch. So Larry would say watch mummy movies.
I think
I do.
you should say sarcophagically delicious.
Who, me?
Yeah, the reason why
Sarcophagus.
because that would be the end thing, and I think you got say it. Just let me see here.
Okay. It's sarcophagically. I don't even know how to say
Okay,
it.
never mind.
Sarcophagically?
No, look, can we give the man
James
just
said it
a
better.
couple moments?
Well, no. Say it again, James. You say it.
I just thought I liked your energy. That's all.
They're
Yeah.
sarcophagically delicious.
sarcophagically.
Okay, wait a minute.
How do you say
Sarcophagically.
Isn't it? But
Sar-
that's not. Isn't it sarcophagus?
Sarcophag-
The word is sarcophagus.
Sarcophagously.
Yeah. If you're gonna say it, it should be that. I
Okay,
think,
all right. No,
There's
maybe
sarcophagus.
I'll buy that.
Maybe I shouldn't be the one to say it.
I can say that
Oh.
better. I think they're sarcophagously delicious. I can say
There you
that.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then you say the tanna leaves then,
Who?
Me?
or Larry, right?
I'm saying you.
What's
You
the
talking
what's the
about?
tanna leaf?
I'm sorry.
I think
Like
you
you
You do this, and then you do that. Okay, sure. You're pointing to our little boxes.
Yeah, you should do this.
I'm
or-
going crazy. I'm tired of
What-
being alone.
what's the tanna leaves line?
Now with marshmallow tanna leaves.
Now with marshmallow tanna leaves.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're right. You should say that, Larry.
okay, here we go. Marshmallow tanna.
Are you okay with that,
So-
James?
Now
Sure.
with marshmallow tanna leaves.
And then I'll say they're sarcophagously delicious.
Oh, good. I like this.
But then wait, then what Matt?
That's
what are you
it.
gonna say? You're gonna say watch mummy movies.
And
James is
eat
gonna say
mummy.
they're yummy, right? Or how we all have to have a
no, well,
thing.
if we all wanted to have say, James, why don't you say and eat yummy mummy cereal?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So Matt's gonna say watch mummy movies. James is gonna say and eat yummy mummy cereal. Larry is gonna
Now
say,
with marshmallow tanna leaves.
and I'm gonna say they're sarcophagously delicious.
There you go.
I love
And
it.
in the
So
next
good.
hour, we'll get this right. Let's go.
Oh,
Hey,
good.
see,
Wow.
this is
It's
brainstorming,
like jazz,
guys.
man.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
this is what the Beatles did when they got together and they worked together. No,
That's
you
true.
have, but this is what you know.
And I
listen,
bet you
hey,
they ate yummy mummy.
hey,
They
there
were
we go.
still alive.
Let's call it "Let It Go." No, let it be.
Let it go.
That does sound
Oh,
good.
Let it go. Let it go. Let it go.
Oh no.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's
right.
do this.
All right, here we go.
Let's
Ready?
give it a shot, okay?
Yes.
Okay. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong. I think that's still
Oh,
you, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. I
You didn't
apologize.
write down your fucking signature thing.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
You know, I was
He's
I was
playing a mummy. He's
I-
not talking.
I was concentrating on the now with marshmallow tanner. I forgot. I apologize.
You really didn't know that it's Let It Be, right?
It's been a long week. I apologize. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I got it. Keep America.
We can't ride you for something. It's not a true episode.
This is going to make for great content afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, let's go. I'm ready to go now.
Let's do it. All right. This is the one. Boom.